Ready?
Yeah.
Let's call this meeting to order. First thing on the agenda tonight, if you rise and face the flag for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Charlie, you're going to give the invocation tonight?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for who you are and for the blessings that you pour out upon us, the mercy and the grace that you give us. Father, we just thank you for that. And we pray now that you just be with us during this time, guide us and direct us, give us wisdom as decisions are made for this community. And we love you and we praise you. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Charlie. Before we get into the statement that I need to make tonight, I want to take some time to wish Cody here happy birthday. This is his 21st birthday. He's now legal. So if you get a chance to ridicule him, I'm not going to sing to him like I did Clay.
Thank you for that.
Best gift I've gotten today.
There you go. Mayor Milton is unable to attend tonight's meeting as acting president. I will be running the meeting, but I will be maintaining my representation for Ward 1 and voting on tonight's matters. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Denham. Here. Skanes.
Here.
Cooper.
Here.
Milton. Fenton.
Here.
Whitus.
Here.
C. Here. Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Concerning the public comments, we're going to follow the standard that's written in our, whatever they're called. Let me get it out. There we go. Branson Municipal Code. Each speaker will have to present comments to present Branson business, city business only, and have a total of 5 minutes. To make their comments, the mayor or board may address those issues raised by any speaker at any point in the meeting without counting against the speaker's 5-minute limit. There may be additional 5 minutes for comments and questions from the mayor, board, or city staff directed to the speaker. The speaker may only talk one time per public comment. Item raised under public comment may be referred to the city staff. No questions. Let's just leave it there. That's enough reading for now, isn't it? Okay. So this is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen meeting. We wish to hear from citizens that have signed up to speak in the order they're listed. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, Your Honor, we do. Doug Clark is our first speaker, 121 St. Andrews Street, Branson. He's speaking on doctor treating COVID and warnings from the scientific community.
Good evening, Doug.
Hi. I know you get tired of seeing me up here, but
It's good to see you.
I'm basically driven on this because, number one, I took an oath of office when I went into the military, said I'm supposed to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And there are several laws that govern that from the Bible that are called treason and misprision of treason, straight out of that context. And if you are a watchman on the wall, it's your responsibility. If you see a crime or if you see something that's not correct, it's your obligation to do that. And if you are tried by a court, which it's still in the U.S. Code, you can be put in prison if you do not report something and it later becomes culpable that you knew that and didn't say anything. So that's part of the Bible, part of our code here in the United States. And what bothers me the most here about most of this stuff, among all the other things I said, is that we have a group of people that are censoring some really high-profile researchers, scientific people, virologists that have been warning about this COVID thing for at least a year and a half, and some of them even longer. And what they're saying, one of them invented the technology. It's RNA and DNA technology was designed for fighting cancer. That's what they were looking at. His name is Dr. Robert Malone. And now, these are the people that are out there trying to get this message out that they're shutting their websites down, they can't get on TV, and you're not hearing the truth about what this stuff is composed of. So you have, these are the credentials of some of these. Dr. Simone Gold, she's from the American Frontline Doctors Association. She couldn't stand it anymore, so she got fired from 2 jobs over speaking out over this. just to let people know an alternative point of view. You know, that's what we're supposed to be about here. We can argue, but if somebody convinces you with the documentation that you have a problem with something, then it's your obligation to listen to them at least. You don't censor. So we have Dr. Fleming. He's a lawyer and a doctor. A guy by the name of Dr. Barnett. Now, he's been using bucidamide, treating people with COVID in Texas, has not lost a patient since this whole thing started because he got to them at first and used the protocols that actually intervenes in the disease, okay? So you have Peter McCullough. Now, this guy here is doing upfront treatments on this stuff. He has not lost a patient. Stella Emanuel, she immigrated here from Africa, and she got fired along with a bunch of the other people that stood up in front of the Capitol, tried to explain this to our media. Nobody came to hear them. The only way you could see it was on alternative internet sites, and they all had good arguments about what they were doing. She has not lost a patient. And this goes on. And then the international law community right now is suing a lot of people in the EU over this whole context of this because they have been fraudulently using the PCR test, the Dresden test that they're using to tell you whether you have this or not. It does not do that. So there's litigation in Germany with this Dr. Fulmuck, and he is also a practicing lawyer in the United States. So they're going to go after the state health departments, anybody that's went through this and said that this is the case and this is what we need to be doing because our hierarchy and our medical administration decided this is what they wanted to do. So, you know, it's really disturbing to me to see this. Now, we have a bunch of nurses at a Methodist hospital in Houston, Texas, that we're seeing in the emergency room, we're seeing the carnage coming in, mostly from people that had the vaccine. There was 140 of them, and they were going to get fired if they didn't take the vaccine. So they were experiencing what was happening with this. Right now, if you look at the actual material from the CDC and the other 11 reporting agencies that report adverse effects, not just the CDC's Wonder Report, but there's 11 other ones. It's 62% of these people that are coming into the hospitals and having problems right now from the vaccine. There isn't any wiggle room on that.
30
But our
seconds.
friendly people in the media do not want to cover it. Now, I want about two more minutes, and I'll finish up here. Now, the other thing about this is Mr.
Doug,
Fauci.
we're going to hold you to the time. I'll give you an additional 30 seconds.
Okay.
Top that.
Well, you have to look at a document called the Fauci dossier. You can go in, and it's all over the alternative internet, and print out the first 27 pages, and you will see the criminal document that tells you how those people have been colluding on generating a disease and then coming up with a patent for that and then patenting the product or antiviral that they would like to have used and excluding everything else that's been going on ever since AIDS. It's the same people involved in it. Not only did they do that, they excluded themselves from liability if they hurt or killed anybody, and they have maimed everybody with almost every antiviral they've used. The only thing that works is ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. If you get it right away, you're safe. And so the main thing that I really got disturbed about here is when the Cox people showed up here at the time, the beginning of the mask arguments, and they said, well, we don't have any other protocols we can use. And they know full well that there were things out there that they could have been using, but they will not let you use that. Any of the doctors on those two systems will not let you use those two parasite drugs that work. I mean, and that's it.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate you.
Our next speaker is Bo D. Jagger, 106 South Drive, Branson, speaking on COVID and sewer tax renewal.
Good evening, Bo.
Good evening, Board. I appreciate you listening to us and allowing us to speak on public comment. Briefly on the whole COVID situation, I wasn't able to be here 2 weeks ago when there was a couple others speaking on that item, and for everybody concerned about the flare-ups. even though we're considered a hot zone, red zone, whatever you may call it, I'm grateful that our board has stood strong in the belief that we can handle our own responsibilities. I don't think it is any place for our board to be putting in restrictions. And I think, bottom line, I think it boils down to we've seen clear as day what our tourism is looking like this year compared to last year. With no restrictions stuff, we're still booming regardless of what the fear tactics and everything going out in the media is. And I'm grateful that you're allowing us to prosper business-wise and living our lives as we should. So I just want to say thank you on that aspect. As far as the sewer district tax, I know it's not a news tax. Everybody's going to kind of have me on that, and I'm aware I'm probably on the losing cause of this, but I'd like to kind of put some awareness out there for anybody that's listening, is some critical thinking on it. Is it's a sales tax that's going to help infrastructure and some sewer districts and stuff. I don't believe it should, the tax and the funding should fall on the sales tax of everyone. If you are paying a sewer bill, have a residence of some kind, I think whatever your usage is, you should be paying for your own usage. I don't think there should be an additional cost on top of whatever that is going to everyday people. Because if I'm paying my bill, that should cover those costs. And why is there an additional tax? A lot of people are, in the last year, have been wanting to lower our taxes, or would be happier if we had lower taxes. Well, until we start somewhere, and I think this is kind of a somewhere item. There's also a program that they have free sewer septic pump out for county residents. I believe if you're using your septic system and you're pumping it out, you should be able to pay for it. How do we know that somebody's not overutilizing that and pumping it twice a year versus they might only need to pump it every 10 years? So we're creating more expenses if somebody is abusing that system, and they should be able to pay for that fewer times. And it just creates you're putting the burden on other people. It reminds me more of a socialistic idea. You charge everybody else to pay the cost for the select few that are actually using that, that program. I do know that a lot of it goes to fixing up developments, broken systems, and I'm grateful that they're wanting to take care of our county and area. But if nobody's living in that development or in that area, why do my tax dollars need to be going to a development that has failed? It should kind of fall on whoever's using that system to correct itself, or look at a grant a different way, or help a different contractor trying to correct that problem. But again, I think it's another socialistic idea. You're asking everybody else, the masses, to pay for certain individuals that has no relation whatsoever to that development. I hope that kind of makes sense to some. I was informed by a gentleman today that there's been probably half dozen that's added up to over $3 million worth of repairs on these developments. Even though they're smaller developments, they're getting massive amounts of funds to repair this, even though it doesn't affect large numbers of the people that are paying for this tax. So I just wanted some people to kind of think about where all this is going, and why do we have such high taxes in this area, and if there's anything we can do to reduce them, reconsider on what we're paying it towards. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo.
Our next speaker is Audrey Richards, 265 Buzz Street, Branson, Missouri, speaking on vaccines and misinformation.
Good evening, Aubrey.
It's been a while.
Yes, it is. Good to see you.
All right, good evening, Board of Aldermen. Over the past year, I think I've made my stance on masking in this town quite clear. Recently, Branson has made news across the country, having been featured unfavorably in the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, and Bloomberg, etc. We even made the Daily Mail in England. And I think one of the things that has kind of frustrated me about this whole process has been that I think I have a different view of what your role is as Board of Aldermen. Because I don't think that you were elected to pass laws. I think that is a function of what you were elected to do. You were elected to lead. And leadership is not taking a poll saying, our people don't want this, so let's get rid of it. Leadership is, doing the right thing even when it is difficult. Leadership is foresight, and it is an unwavering commitment to the people and their lives that you have been elected to serve. And I wasn't actually planning on speaking tonight until I heard what was said at a town hall last night by our state senator, Mike Moon. This is just kind of one of the continuous bouts of misinformation that our side of this debate has really had to go up against, because he tried to use Captain Levi Preston, who fought in the Continental Army, as an example as to why vaccines are somehow bad, because the redcoats were trying to take our freedom and rah-rah America, so he would have clearly been against today's vaccines, right? But the truth is, if Senator Moon had done the slightest bit of research, he would have found that there's a 75% likelihood that Captain Preston himself was subject to a mandatory vaccination. George Washington, on February the 5th, 1777, ordered that the entire Continental Army be inoculated against smallpox. There were no opt-outs, no choices, no CDC, no WHO, and no phased trials. Washington said inoculation was the way to win, and his soldiers believed him. That is leadership. George Washington's own hand can be seen on this letter, and it's viewable on the Library of Congress website. If vaccinations are un-American, then George Washington is un-American. And now multiple experts have cited our city as the epicenter of the Delta variant, as well as its origin here in the Midwest. And I think we need to take responsibility, not only for the people visiting our town, but for its residents. And I'm not advocating for mandatory vaccinations, and while I would support a second mask mandate, I'm not naive enough to believe that you care enough about my voice alone to listen. The only thing I want is for y'all to stop kind of waffling on whether vaccinations are effective, because they are. Every single death recorded at Cox Hospital in July was an unvaccinated person. Your waffling and willful ignorance is influencing people because you are in a position of power, and we put you there because we believe that you would lead. So 5 or 10 years from now, by which time I pray that this is all gone, I hope that you can look back at what you have done while you're sitting in these chairs and ask hey, have I done enough? Are you going to look back at the dozens of deaths in our community since the vaccine was made available and say, I did enough? And finally, I think it speaks volumes that the week our governor sends a strike team and a fleet of ambulances to Southwest Missouri that our mayor has chosen to be absent as our people continue to suffer and die. Larry, you might as well have gone to Cancun. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
That's all of our speakers.
That's all of our speakers. Next is the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member of the audience would like to have moved down from the consent agenda to ask additional questions or comments? Any items the board would like to have moved down? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Aldermen minutes for the July 13th, 2021 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Planning Commission minutes for the May 4th, 2021 meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Advisory Park Board minutes for the May 18th, 2021 meeting. Final reading of Bill Number 6021, an ordinance approving the agreement with the 76 Entertainment Community Improvement District for the funding of the undergrounding utilities in Segment 3 of the West 76 Country Boulevard, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Final reading of the Bill Number 6022, an ordinance amending Chapter 18 Buildings and Building Regulations of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to footing and foundation permits. Final reading of Bill Number 6023, an ordinance approving the contract with the tract Branson Propco 2 LLC for the sale of real estate, and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda. The floor is open for a motion approving all items on the consent agenda.
Would you guys do that, please? Moved by Cody, seconded by Ruth. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? Okay, please vote.
The vote is 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Your Honor, the next item is the discussion of the fiscal year 2020 financial audit performed by Cochran Head Vick and Company, P.C. for the City of Branson. This item was postponed from the July 13th, 2021 regular meeting.
We'll begin with a staff report from Stacy McAllister. Thank you, Stacy.
Good evening, members of the board. Jamie's unable to be here tonight, so my name is Stacy McAllister, and I'll be presenting the finance items tonight. Our first item is a presentation of our fiscal year 2020 financial audit by our auditors Cochran, Head, and Vick. The audit draft was presented to the Finance and Capital Committee at the June 25th meeting. We have Amy from Cochran, Head, and Vick on the line to present the audit tonight.
Amy, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen so I can show you the presentation.
Thank you for making this presentation, Amy.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, we can see.
Okay, can everybody see the presentation?
Yep, everything's good.
Perfect. Well, good evening. Again, I am Amy Tharnish. I'm with Cochran Head Vick. Thank you again for inviting me to present this evening and allowing CHV to perform the city's audit this year. So let me start by introducing the firm. CHV has been serving Missouri and Kansas since 1975. CHV has been awarded the highest rating as a result of our peer review. And so what a peer review is when another audit firm actually comes in and audits us and verifies that we are performing our audits in accordance with auditing standards. And we are members of several organizations, as I've listed up in the presentation, and we're licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. The scope of our engagement this year was to audit the basic financial statements and the comprehensive annual financial report. So the city submits the comprehensive annual financial report for participation in the GFOA Certificate of Achievement, and the city has received this award for 15 consecutive years. As part of our audit, we do have a few responsibilities. So we are required to conduct our audit in accordance with both generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. We plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that there are no material misstatements. And we also report on internal controls and that the city is in compliance with laws and regulations. And so at the conclusion of our audit, we're required to communicate certain items to you as the governing board. First is regarding illegal acts, and we are pleased to report that no illegal acts came to our attention during the audit. Second is regarding changes in significant accounting policies, and the city did implement GASB 84 during the year, which is regarding fiduciary activities. So this new GASB impacted the Landscape Trust, and as this is just a custodial fund, the name changed from agency fund to a fiduciary fund. And the statements for the fiduciary fund are on page 23 and 24 of the annual report. There were no other new accounting policies implemented. We did not encounter any difficulties and did not have any disagreements with management. And we had full cooperation during the audit and was given access to all records requested. So the audit addresses three basic questions. Are the financial statements free of material misstatement? So we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that an auditor can give and does state that the financials are fairly presented. Our internal controls over financial reporting adequately designed and operating effectively. We did not identify any items during the audit that we considered to be a material weakness. And did the city comply with finance-related laws and regulations? And in our opinion, yes, the city did comply with laws and regulations. So as part of our audit, we do like to suggest items for best practice or potential improvement. And so the two comments that we made this year was first, in regards to cybersecurity, and really this is just stated as a reminder. with everything going on. We just wanted to make sure that was in everybody's mind. But the city has implemented several measures to reduce the risk of cyber attacks. The second item is future accounting pronouncements, and there's always new ones coming up. And based on the current list of pronouncements, Finance Department will need to review GASB 87 on leases to see what impact that will have on the city. However, this one does not go into effect until 2022. And so we appreciate the opportunity for CHV to serve as the city's auditor. I want to thank the city administrator, Mr. Dobbins, and all the finance staff for their assistance during the audit. They were fantastic to work with, and we appreciate all of their hard work. Thank you. And at this time, we'll open it up if anybody has any questions.
Any of the board have any questions? I have just one. It was a question that came to me a couple of meetings ago. We put this thing off in order to do it tonight. And were there any changes in this audit and its outcome between the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago that you made a presentation, or is it exactly the same?
It is exactly the same. We made no changes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
I made a mistake. Does anybody in the audience have a question for the auditor? Okay, thank you so much. We'll move
Thank
on
you.
to the next item.
Your Honor, the next item is a presentation on the Taney County sewer sales tax and upcoming vote.
We will begin with a staff report from Kendall Powell.
Good evening, Board, members of the Board.
Just saying, Kendall, I think that Bo should have heard your report from last week. We're going to have to give him an update on it.
Good evening, members of the Board. I would like to introduce to you Taney County Regional Sewer District Administrator Brad Albritton, and along with Jonas Argis with the Taney County Partnership, and they will be presenting information on the Taney County sewer sales tax for you.
You're up, bud.
Thanks, Kendall. Thank you, Board. I appreciate to talk to you tonight. Here to talk about the renewal of the Taney County sewer sales tax, as it's known. This tax was a sales tax that was voted on and first approved in 1993. We've got a flyer that we've put together that you see on the screen there. I believe you may have it in your packet. And that tax was put in place in 93 to start cleaning up the county. The district was formed in 83, and for those first 10 years, oversaw the permitting of septic systems in the county and the private treatment facilities that existed. And in 93, with the implementation of the tax, got started on building sewer projects in the unincorporated areas of the county. And those first few projects were outside of the city of Hollister over there, along Lake Taneycomo, Acacia Club Road area, Short Creek, Coon Creek, Lake Shore Drive. Those were the first projects. Since that time, we've done many, many projects. Extended sewers out to Kirbyville, Power Site, now Venice on the Lake, which is east of Rockaway Beach and Merriam Woods, and have spent many millions of dollars putting in sewer throughout the county and upgrading existing infrastructure. To date, the tax has generated a little over $171 million. The fund balance is currently just under $7 million. So that's a lot of money that's gone directly to putting in central sewers throughout the county and eliminating pollution problems that are out there and that someone has to deal with. That's the way we view ourselves in the county, is to protect our waters. We go in and solve problems. There are lots of developments, unfortunately, that are old technology. Developer maybe can't handle it, or actually the HOA maybe can't handle the problem anymore. A lot of times the HOAs get the whole sewer system thrusted onto their lap. And we've been able to go in many times and help them solve issues. Big Bear down off P Highway on Table Rock Lake was a very important project that the HOA struggled to handle, and the treatment facility stunk to high heaven, essentially. And because of the sewer sales tax, we're able to go in there and mitigate that situation and eventually do a sewer extension. The The district's not the only one that benefits from this tax. The municipalities do get a good share of the money, and they apply annually for their projects. The city of Branson, Kendall will have a good list of projects every year along with the other municipalities, and they'll apply and typically get approved. There's not unlimited money, obviously, but it does go to upgrade lift stations and treatment facilities. I believe the city has used some of the money, Kendall, for engineering on the Compton treatment plant flood wall protection. A neat project that came out of the sales tax was the biosolids facility that you probably all have heard about. You house the main component of that at your Cooper Creek treatment facility. The DNR partnered with the county and with a grant of around $3 million, I believe. And it's an amazing facility to have. Most counties do not have that, so we're very blessed to have that biosolids facility to keep hundreds of trucks off our roadways. Land applying sludge is the old way of doing that. The people that live out in the county that aren't on central sewer do get to take a benefit and take advantage of the septic tank pump out program. That's something that was thought of several years ago, that how could we benefit those people that, yes, do go to the store and do pay that tax. And that's a way that they can do that. They can apply every 4 years and get their septic tank pumped out. It's a value of around $150, depending on where you live. We are currently completing several projects, putting a large interceptor line out Turkey Creek to serve Branson Creek, and the Highway 86, Big Cedar Top of the Rock area. We are finishing up our Venice on the Lake project, which was a huge environmental need over there east of Rockaway Beach. And we can plan to continue to do that. If the tax is renewed on August 3rd, coming up a week from today, that's our plan. We've updated our master plan about a year and a half ago. That's on our website if someone would like to go there and review that. The master plan shows over $140 million worth of sewer projects in the county. Some of those get kind of far out there, sewering some subdivisions that are even out in the east with a small regional plant. But that's what we plan to do. We have over 250 miles of sewer just on our system. We now have 3 treatment facilities, and it helps keep our waters clean is the goal. The vote that you will see, the ballot language, I should say, that you will see on August 3rd says, shall Taney County continue to impose a countywide sales tax of 0.5% for sewer purposes for an additional period of 25 years? So that's the question that the voters will see in the county next week. The reason for 25 years is to allow us to bond a project if we needed to do that. That would give us a little more time than the 20-year term of a bonded project. It's important to note that this is a renewal of an existing tax since '93. It's not an increase at all. It's the same level. And our infrastructure is aging throughout the district now, since being in existence since the 90s. We need to continue to upgrade that. If we keep our rates very stable with the tax, our current rate in the county is $37.50. I think that may be quite a bit more than what an in-city rate is, but for a rural sewer district, that's a pretty reasonable rate. And if the tax does not pass, the rates will certainly go up all throughout the county, and I would imagine it'll impact the municipalities as well. Jonas Argis is here with me. He's with the Taney County Partnership, and he'd like to say a few words.
I'm Van.
He came prepared.
So, Your Honor, members of the board, thank you for the time and opportunity to speak to you today on this very important issue. So in full transparency, my role here is the Deputy Treasurer of the campaign committee, which is Vote Yes for Taney County Clean Water. Chris Hammond is the treasurer. Our role is to advocate for a yes vote. Brad's role is to educate those folks, yourselves included, and all the meetings that we've been attending over the last few weeks. He cannot legally ask you to vote yes. I can. I encourage you and ask you, vote yes on August 3rd to renew this tax. You know, I think a couple of things to us. This is an environmental question as much as it is an economic development question. If you care about the drinking water and the clean water in this county, you should support this renewal. For the economic development side, right now, you know, the current situation has really amplified our need for labor. One of the challenges we have in attracting more labor and growing our population base is the inventory of adequate housing for the jobs that are available in this community. So the more infrastructure we can get in the ground to make it easier or more convenient or cheaper for housing developers to build housing stock, we need to take a serious look at that and do everything we can to make that possible. And the sewer district allows for that to happen. As we grow towards the eastern side of the county and we get to some better Taney County flat ground that actually has a little topsoil, having that infrastructure in the ground is critical for sustainability of our economy and to be able to build more housing stock as we continue. We're not going to stop growing, right? We've seen through the current circumstances and historically, we are going to continue to grow as a city, continue to grow as a county, continue to grow as a region in Southwest Missouri, as well as Northwest Arkansas. So a couple of things to point out that Brad may not have mentioned is that if you look at rural sewer districts throughout the state of Missouri, we may be the only ones, the sales tax district, dedicated sales tax district. All the rest are either property tax based or user based, right? So, and I wasn't around and I wasn't paying attention to civic matters back in the early 90s, but I'm pretty sure the conversation was similar to that of the Branson tourism tax, that the users are not only the residents, but the millions of visitors that we host on an annual basis. So why not put in a program in place that allows those visitors to help us pay for that needed infrastructure that we have to not only take care of ourselves, but also be good stewards and be good hosts for those visitors that come. That is why it's a sewer tax. I think if you look at the half cent, and I would love to pay less taxes on everything, but if you look at the half cents, and if you, as a household, buy $1,000 worth of those taxable goods in this county, that's roughly, $50 or $5 a month, right? So $60, and I'm telling you, $1,000 a month, that's a lot. And if those of you that have households, especially with kids. So $60 a year, if that's the case, and if the pump out program is valued at $150, you get some of that back. We're realists. We know that there's going to be certain parts of the county that will never get central services. It's just not feasible. But at least we have that system or that program in place. So we're a staunch proponent for this. This fits in with everything we want to do as a community to maintain our lakes, our streams. If you were around years ago and had to live through the algae blooms in Table Rock Lake. Now, granted, most of that was not our problem. That was mostly from our neighbors to the north coming down through the James River. But same thing with the topography and the growth we've had and similar situations in Stone County. We need to have this program continue. If it doesn't continue, then we have $170+ million worth of infrastructure that's going to need upkeep and maintenance, and then that will go to the ratepayers, and then there will, at some point in the future, have to be some other dedicated funding stream to help pay for that. So I would much rather keep it up and pay for it now the way it's been paid for and keep going to what we're doing, because a lot of good work's been done. So again, please vote yes, August 3rd. Happy to take any questions.
Couple other things, if I might.
Go ahead.
I forgot to mention, appreciate the partnership that we've had with the city. I should have mentioned that earlier. The district's partnered with the city many times on projects, the largest one being the Bee Creek project. That's the district's largest sewer project that is somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million. Those customers are city customers. Table Rock, Acres, and Dam Site were two projects that the county, the district built, and now are city customers. And we've most recently worked on the Emery Creek watershed, an amended agreement here a year or two ago to allow the district to go in and take over that system at the request of the Emery Creek HOA there. We're having a lot of problems, and we're able to go in and help them. So we do appreciate that relationship we've had with the city. It's been important.
Thank you.
As Jonas mentioned, glad to take any questions.
Okay, anybody in the audience wishing to speak regarding this matter? Does Bo need to restate his name and address, or is it
Yes,
already
please.
on? Okay.
Bo Dieger, 106 South Drive. I'm glad they came up and talked, and I'm glad I stayed here long enough to kind of hear what they went over. He, clear as day, and it caught my ear more than many others. I don't believe that the rest of the county should be paying for developers' new developments infrastructure. If a developer comes in, and I'm in the construction business, if a developer has enough money to start development, they should be able to take care of the needs to get it started and get it going. And look at it another way. I'm not pointing fingers, but we all want to care for others individuals. Well, if you look at lower income people in the area, we have lower pay scale for some people. If you look at lower and middle class people and you take another half-cent tax out of those people, how much could they benefit it? And then you're throwing that money into a developer's pocket that's going to benefit off this infrastructure. I don't think it's the right way to appropriate things. And they also mentioned that we're one of the only counties that has this sewer tax. So I'm going to restate that it should be a user base type of thing, and it should go forward in that. And there's a couple more things that slipped my mind I wanted to talk on, but I would like to see us reduce some taxes, and these developments should be able to handle it their own. If somebody's building a new home out in the county area, they do have to get overlooked on their new sewer septic system, but they don't have to get tied into a massive sewer plant. So I like the oversight that they do on new septic systems, but I don't believe that it should be the cost of everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Gentlemen, you want a chance to respond? Anybody else like to speak, please? Giving you your opportunity. Okay, any alderman? Clay, you want to talk? Ruth, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I had met with Mr. Albritton because I had some questions, because some of this can be quite confusing, so maybe it isn't to some of you, but I had a few questions. Are the available dollars used for new projects only, or can they be used for existing subdivisions?
Can you restate that?
The dollars that are made available by the sewer sales tax, can these dollars only be used on new projects, or can they be used whenever the money's awarded? Can they be used on, to upgrade existing systems?
Yes, they can definitely be used to upgrade existing systems. There are guidelines that the county operates under to what qualifies as a qualifying expense underneath the sales tax. Sewer extensions, certainly, lift station upgrades, improvements to treatment facilities, those types of things. So if there was a project that was out there that was an existing project or a piece of existing infrastructure, it would qualify.
Okay, thanks. And then just to clarify, whenever the municipalities submit their projects for consideration, can you please explain how the county determines which projects they're going to award the dollars to? What's their, what they base their decisions on?
So the process is for the municipalities to submit their request of projects by September 30th, I believe. Those projects will have an explanation and an estimated cost and will come from typically utility departments in each municipality. John Suti at the Environmental Services Department and I will review those and make a recommendation to the county. Typically what happens is we look at the environmental benefit first and try to ensure that people that are applying, when I say people, the municipalities that are applying, can get a share. So we don't have a matrix or a ranking system, but we look at those projects from an environmental standpoint of how critical of a piece of infrastructure is it, or what area it might be serving that might be on a septic systems or having issues. And typically we'll package that total sum of dollars up for municipalities and present that to the county commission. And they approve the budget, but then each individual project has to have its own individual approval through the funding agreement process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ruth.
Yeah, Jonas had mentioned that if the half a cent, if this doesn't pass, I mean, he made us want to mention that again, that if this doesn't pass, that burden's going to fall back on, the 0.5% is like minute compared to if this don't, you know, what we could pay in the long run if it doesn't pass, that 0.5% is tiny, tiny compared to what eventually it's all got to be paid by somewhere, right?
Yeah, and I think that was my point, that, you know, the decision and the birth of this happened, you know, 30 years ago. And so now that we've put $171 million of infrastructure in and above ground, that part of it, a lot of it is funded by the sales tax, and part of it's funded by the customers, the users. As it's grown, we've got more customers. But if you take that capital investment source away, the existing infrastructure isn't going to go away, right? So, and then the whole point, again, with the sales tax versus a property tax, if it was a regular sewer district like every other, or most every other sewer district in the state of Missouri, everybody's paying. On there, it'd be a property tax assessment, regardless. Right? I mean, if you do not want to pay the sales tax, you have options. You can go shop in Stone County, Christian County. I mean, if you're adamant about not paying that half penny, you have options. If it was a property tax, if you own property, you're going to pay it. Yeah. So again, it goes back to who's using it and who's helping pay for it. The visitors, the tourism economy. And again, I wasn't involved back then, but I can understand the thought process of what they went through to come to the conclusion of putting a tax question on the ballot back in '93.
Gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think you said the average rate is $37.50 a month. I mean, I think that's really important too, kind of to piggyback on what Alderman Cooper's saying. I mean, I know I live in the city. My sewer bill is honestly laughable. I mean, it's
$12.
in comparison,
Yeah.
you know, in comparison to what, I mean, we just had a presentation from Kendall last Thursday, and we've got, what, $40 million worth of water lines, and that was just the water lines. So reality is this is expensive. The only way to sort of head this off and sort of spread out that cost is to keep this tax in place and renew this. I used to represent a lot of HOAs. I don't do it anymore, but back in the day I did. And you know, the hardest conversation to have with the board and with those homeowners is when you have these unexpected costs come up and everybody says, okay, well now we got to do a special assessment. I know this is different, but it's kind of the same thing. So if we don't pass this and something breaks, the money's got to come from somewhere, right? And so if we don't have this fund building through this relatively small tax, you know, like Bo, I don't like paying taxes any more than the next person, but I also understand there's, you know, to have a society, a functioning society, there's just certain costs associated with that. So I think it's important that we do renew this and keep this in place, because we've got a lot of costs here, a ton of costs that people aren't going to really like when their sewer bill goes up if we don't have this tax in place. And that's my concern is, you know, we don't want to pay taxes, I get it, but we also don't want to see our sewer bill go up from $37.50 a month to God knows how much.
Yes.
So thank you for your presentation, both of you.
Yes, thank you.
Jeff, Jamie?
I'll just speak to the time this passed first. I've been around here a number of years, and in my neighborhood, Table Rock Acres, in that area towards the dam. So a lot of septic systems in that neighborhood, and then when we had this opportunity to work through this and incorporate it to the city, that city sewer bill is much better than what it was. So, and the just a cleaner neighborhood too, with less septic, with all the septics removed.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the 40 million also, but Cody handled that, because we've got that stuff sitting on the burner for our neighborhoods, and they're pretty dire, some of them. So, and I know this is not going to pay for that, but
Right.
you know, just to give everybody an idea of how much this stuff costs and how important it is. So, Jonas, did you say the bump in a monthly bill for like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house or something?
Well, if you look
estimate
at the average household income of Taney County, and if you just take a number, if they're spending $1,000 a month on taxable goods within the county, it's $5 a month.
It's the same amount they're paying now, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Right.
they're not. It's not going to be more, and it's not going to be less either. But it's not going to be more. I think one point, I think I heard the comment about, let the developer bear the burden of the failing batch plant. Well, we've taken 100 batch plants offline in the last 30-some years. And if we would have let 100 batch plants fail, what would Taneycomo look like? What would, and again, it's, Meadow Ridge is a great example. We presented to their HOA a couple weeks ago. And I believe the cost to the sewer district to take over actually not to take over the plan, but extend a trunk line up from Roark up to Meadow Ridge to take a failing plant offline cost the district about $700,000. And then a member of their board reminded Brad that it actually saved the homeowners of Meadow Ridge over $2 million for that to happen. So again, $2 million that stayed in the economy versus fixing a batch plant.
So, and this is a question for either one of you, but you want to address the developers and the subdivisions and the county's responsibility? Do you, for essential services, and maybe do you guys invest county money to get a development going?
Do we invest?
Well, I think we've done that on some stuff here where it makes sense to, while we're doing this project, to update some of our sewer stuff too.
Right.
So as far as supplying essential services to a subdivision, what's your responsibility?
Right, so a lot of the examples I was giving earlier are situations where a treatment facility is failing or having lots of issues, and the homeowners association just is not set up to handle it. So they reach out to us and start the dialogue about how can they get out of the sewer business, essentially. Right. And we're fortunate to have the tax because we can go in and most of the time, not all the time, but we can plan a project to, maybe we take it over and improve it, as we did down at Big Bear temporarily for 3 or 4 years. I think we spent $75,000 to get the aeration going in that, and that's temporarily solved that issue until we could build a sewer extension and get it connected. That one happens to be to the city of Hollister.
Right, so that comes out of the county coffers,
the sewer sales tax.
Out of the sales tax.
Yes,
so,
sir.
And so when you say there was 100 taken out of service, the private, is that including septics?
That's just private treatment facilities, so facilities that have a DNR operating permit that discharge wastewater on the ground, in a ditch that eventually makes its way into creeks and our lakes. There were 140 treatment facilities, private treatment facilities, not municipal, but private in the county in the 80s and early 90s. There are only 40 now, and I can't say that the tax removed every one of those, right, but it was responsible for a large number of them, probably the majority. And that's what we do, go out and solve problems in the county. You mentioned the $40 million. The audit that you just saw, I would imagine if you look in it, has a number that's the value of assets of your sewer and water system, and it's probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's infrastructure that has to be maintained and upgraded and improved.
Well, work on getting that for us, that 40 million.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Brad, I've been around long enough. Now, we used to own about 30 acres up Bee Creek Road where Harry Cooper is. And I remember spending a lot of time with both John Suti and I didn't have any gray hair at the time. And then we took tours of Lake Taneycomo and the rock strata and the grossness that was oozing out of those rocks that was going into Taneycomo, north of town up here. It was pretty awful. I think you guys have done a remarkable job with it, and it cleaned up the structure. I've seen properties up there where the surface area was actually floating from the sewer effluent that was running out of the septic systems after a heavy rain when they fill up. And so, yeah, This thing needs to go. I appreciate you coming in with your patience and spending time with us, taking questions, and then funding all our activities when you get a chance.
That's right, we'll do our best. We appreciate you all very much tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is a presentation by Chamber of Commerce Quarterly Report, Jason Outman.
Begin with a staff report for John Manning. Do a hat and dance for us.
Your Honor, if I could, to save John the trip.
Yeah, you can.
Mr. President, members of the board, we have Jason Outman with us tonight to give us a presentation on the second quarter from the Branson Chamber of Commerce, CVB. Jason, remember to be succinct and have a good time.
Thank you. Board, thank you for having me. Looking forward to giving a great update from our second quarter this year. April, May, and June was another outstanding opportunity for 21. We're excited about where we've been. I'm going to try to, when I did my first quarter presentation, obviously that was my first time presenting, and it was a lot of me, and I, and what I, was able to accomplish in my first 90 days. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible, but really highlight some of the great things that happened over the course of the second quarter. That's me. All right, so the first thing is I want to touch base real quick on the sheltered venue grant. We were able to host a webinar with a lot of the theaters and the show owners. You can see here over 35 representatives in attendance, and the purpose of the sheltered venue grant, 45% potentially of your 19 revenues you can get reimbursed. I actually just got an update this morning that this region, specifically Branson and the Hollister areas, actually, I'll drop Hollister, so we'll just talk about Branson. To date, $16.2 million has been awarded to some of these venue owners to help recover 45% of their 19 revenue. That was just provided to me this morning, so I'm super excited to announce that, because that's really going to help some of these individuals that took major losses throughout 2020. Again, this is from the second quarter, so you're seeing things that we know happened. This happened to be all the way back on April 6th, and I know we're at the end of July, but again, second quarter updates. So obviously, we took the opportunity. Jonas helped lead the charge with individuals, Steve Rand, Presley, Mike Patrick, Craig Westcott, Alderman Cooper, Blake Robbins, Phil Cox, a lot of individuals in our community to help promote the renewal of the tourism tax. I'm glad to say that obviously it was successful. One of the great things that we were able to do out of this opportunity, the money that was raised by private donors into that pot, we were able to push out social media advertising, geofence to our residents. Obviously, we put out boards and signage everywhere. But you can just see a few of the highlights here, our reach, our impressions, our click-through rates. So we were able to get that successfully passed, and that's why I think the community felt great coming back to Jonas and some others and saying, okay, now we need your help on the sewer tax. Jonas has a great plan on how to do this stuff. So if you need something passed, come to Jonas. He loves that I just said that, by the way. ImagineBransonMo.com. I've mentioned this before, but this is our new website that helps promote essentially relocation into the Branson market. It's at no cost to individuals here that own a business that need to post jobs. If you haven't been on it, and I apologize for not having any slides to show you tonight, it follows along the same theme as ExploreBranson.com. It's very appealing. There's videos, there's photos. We've added a new feature to it that actually promotes stories. So our first private company that was able to take part in that was the Tracks. Vote yes to renew. Was the Tracks, and they were able to highlight, what it is to work at the Tracks, and they, showcased individual stories of, people that have worked there just for, years and years, and how great and how fun it is to work there. And we're able to sell this through our site so that when people are looking for a job, again, this is a no-cost job board to you. But on top of that, people that are looking to move here, they'll see all of the relocation assets and why Branson is a great place to move. State of the State luncheon took place on June 7th at the Chateau. The governor was here. He gave a quick update on the state of the state. We were excited. This was, for our individual office, this was really our first chance to really get back into a larger event. We had 250 guests at the Chateau. We actually had to cut off registration because of the limits at the time that the Chateau had due to COVID restrictions. But we were excited with where the 250 guests were. We had obviously great sponsors with some of our locals, with Arvist and Mary Kellogg with the Titanic, and Alice Akers and Arnie. So it was a great event. We're looking forward to doing more. In fact, we just had one at the Titanic, our first after hours since the pandemic started. We hosted that last week at the Titanic. So you'll be seeing more of our events starting to kick back up like you all are used to from the chamber. Sewer tax renewal, I don't think I need to beat the dead horse on this one, but vote yes. We're helping to push that through. Great opportunity, continues to help with our development. The one thing I do want to state is, Jonas was being kind of modest when he talked about, the developers' development and the requests that are starting to really pick up through his office and people that are wanting to come here. These are the things that they're asking is how can we make it easier for them to build their developments, not just housing, but commercial, restaurants, hotels, individuals that want to build here. It's really picked up over the last few months in the requests coming through Jonas's office. These things will make it a more development-friendly region, and so we're excited about potentially getting that renewed. Threshold 360, I may have mentioned this briefly before, but essentially what Threshold 360 is it's a virtual tour that our partners will have an opportunity to buy into. So we are the master contractee of Threshold 360, but then we were able to lease it out to opportunities with like the Hilton, the Convention Center, some of the different tourism and meetings and convention facilities. So what they will do is once they contract, Threshold 360 will come in and do a complete inside virtual tour of their property. So it'll give a meeting planner, it'll give a visitor an opportunity to come and do a full-on tour prior to coming into market. So almost that, really kind of building up that hot sell before you can get them here, that pre-sell, and kind of answering a lot of their questions. So Threshold 360 is really gonna be a great asset for us. And now we're expanding upon this, and I apologize, this isn't on the slide because this is something that we're actually doing in this current quarter. So you'll hear more about it when I do my third quarter presentation. But just to give you a quick update, SkyNav, which is similar to Threshold 360, but SkyNav focuses more on your outside aerial footage, where Threshold 360 focuses on the inside of facilities. SkyNav is outside. They were just here this past weekend, took over 15 aerial footages of Branson. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but once we get to the point where we'll be able to launch these two programs, SkyNav and Threshold 360, we're actually tied together into one main website. It'll live off of our website. We can share it with our partners. We can send it off into digital bid books. But a visitor will be able to go to this site. They'll be able to click on the aerial footage first. So for instance, where we're at right now, this downtown area will have, I think it was 2 to 4 aerial shots. So you'll be able to see Branson Landing. You'll be able to see the Convention Center, the Hilton, the downtown businesses, all from an aerial shot. And then like the Hilton, for instance, has participated with Threshold 360, you'll be able to click in and then go inside and tour the Hilton. So as a visitor, you're seeing downtown, you're seeing the Landing, you're seeing inside the Hilton, building that excitement, and now you're saying, okay, let's go. So we're super excited about all of this. And again, this will live on our website, and we'll be able to push this out with all of our partners. Branson Bugle Partnerships, we have started the opportunity to get out there and continue to educate, the veterans and special events throughout Branson. We've opened up this opportunity to local businesses, to help sponsor this. It's a great opportunity each year to showcase everything that Branson is doing to highlight our veterans and their the great things that are around supporting our veterans. Talk about visitation a little bit for second quarter. So you can see here, so this is a little bit of a switch from first quarter. First quarter, Alderman Cooper and I had a discussion about, Denton, Texas, and making sure that we're getting into Dallas and some of those areas. Dallas was higher on the list during our first quarter. But what you're seeing is during the second quarter, especially as you start getting into June, you're really starting to recognize that regional travel that's coming in once school got out. So we're seeing some of the, the normal names kind of return to the top of the list. Springfield, Kansas City, Little Rock. Obviously, Northwest Arkansas is still big for us, Tulsa, and so on. Dallas, Chicago, they're still on the list. Chicago has dropped down a little bit. I'm sure you all have seen, unfortunately, due to some of the national media, the state of Missouri is now back onto a restriction traveling into Chicago. They have to, if you're coming from Missouri, you have to quarantine going into Chicago. So that's obviously hurt our visitation a little bit in those areas. We are hoping, obviously that I think health officials have mentioned to me that possibly mid-August, we might see the spike with the Delta variant, and then we'll start to slowly move back down. So hopefully the news media will start taking it easy on us a little bit. But you can see here, still a great visitation. Most of the markets are within 300 miles, which has kind of followed up where we've been over the last year. Our summer marketing campaign, so this was May through June, or I'm sorry, through July. So we're getting ready to wrap this campaign up. The We Believe campaign with the tagline of "Summer was made for memories." So this was what we've been pushing out, especially to our drive markets throughout the region. You can see that we obviously are doing a lot of content with Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and we actually did have our first TikTok video go viral. We actually did a video on the glamping tents over at Big Cedar, and we went from, just to give you an idea of where this went, so we hit almost 2.5 million views on TikTok for this one, not even, I think, 30, 45 second, video on TikTok. We hit 2.5 million views. But not only was that great, but what it did was, because we were on TikTok for such a short period of time, we went from 550 followers on TikTok. We're now at over 35,000 followers on TikTok that are now seeing our footage that we are posting. And we try to post something almost every day on TikTok, which, that's outside of paying staff, that's a free posting for marketing, digital marketing. So it's a great opportunity. We're hoping to get another one that will go viral soon. The digital staff is really loving getting into TikTok and getting some of the messaging out there. I've got a little video here that's going to pop up. I remembered this time, so I'm going to show you here. Do I have to push something to make it go?
Let's go to the next slide. It should autoplay.
Where does that play, buddy?
I'm sorry?
Where does that play?
So that video right there is actually what we use, the meetings, convention, and sports team. Our sales team use that when they're traveling around to the conventions. We use that also with our leisure when Lenny is out there speaking to people. That is our video that we use to get all of these events, which was why it was so event focused there, to really consider coming to Branson. I mean, if you look at that, you can't sit there and say there's nothing to do in Branson. I mean, we try to cover everything, you know, obviously the shows, the attractions, the lakes, you know, the dining. I mean, we really do try to hit it all to really highlight everything that there is. So we take that video out, and that has been a great resource for us, a great sales tool.
Thank you.
I want to go there.
We can arrange that. We can
I
arrange
saw
that.
your name in it.
I want to go there.
We can arrange that. So a couple quick highlights from the second quarter. Again, you can see here our room nights and jobs supported. But the thing I want to focus on is the economic impact. So, you know, during the second quarter, we had $3.2 million of actualized business. Again, actualized means those are the events that physically took place during the second quarter. And then you'll see in the second side, the $4.3 million in economic impact. That's future business. So those are the leads that the sales team responded to and booked a piece of business during the second quarter for a future year. So that's future year impact of $4.3 million, but actualized of $3.2 million during the second quarter. And then on the sports side, you can see here, sports, man, I'll tell you, second quarter was just tremendous. And if you haven't paid attention in this community over the last couple months and seeing all of the baseball jerseys and the softball, it's actually softball right now over at the Recplex. It's been amazing to see all of the families and the kids around. So during the second quarter, sports, we actualized just under $7.9 million in actualized business and booked future business of $5 million. One thing I want to point out is we, unfortunately, again, due to the national media kind of hurting us a little bit, we have had our tracking conversations with Sam and the convention center. We are starting to see cancellations this fall and into the winter, COVID-related groups that are worried about coming into the market due to the spike in the region. We had 2 last week, and I believe this morning Sam told me that we had another 2 so far this week. And Sam is collecting all that information, and he provides that to Mr. Manning in the city so that we can follow along. And then in our office, if it's a lead that came through the CVB, we mark it canceled, but in the system, we still help showcase the economic impact so we can track what was lost economically due to the pandemic. So again, unfortunately, those are starting to tick up. We are trying to convince the planners, to hold off and give it a second. We've got people calling in for November and December, and we're like, okay, just give it a second. Let's see what happens here. Let's give it a second before you cancel your meeting. So we're trying to talk them out of it, but we did have some that have already canceled. Quick update on the leisure. During the second quarter, we hosted the 2 FAMs. Those were great opportunities. Lenny has been extremely busy. In fact, we were able to hire her some help in the office and getting a leisure coordinator that helps Lenny each day. And the amount of business that she has been getting and the leads that she's been responding to and trying to get the student market back and get the buses back into town, all of those tour groups. ABA, she hosted a group travel reunion fam, attended the military reunion network, doing everything she can. And I'll tell you, Lenny is an asset for this community, and we appreciate everything that she does. A quick PR update. I think this is actually my last slide. So for the second quarter, our return on investment was 51-1. Top 3 articles, Yahoo Finance, the most affordable vacation spots with a reach of 51 million. And USA Today, the 9 summer vacation ideas for families with a reach of 20 million. And then in the Forbes article, The Great Escapes, 11 Alternatives to America's Crowded National Parks with a reach of 33 million. Just another great opportunity to just pushing that message out, and the amount of articles that are being written. We're excited about where it's going there. And right now, we are still seeing more positive articles than negative, but the negative has hurt us a little this past quarter. I'm not going to say thank you yet because I want to give you a couple quick updates that I just added before I walked over here. So for the second quarter, and you all would have known this because obviously you get the reports, but for second quarter, tourism tax was up 45% over the second quarter of 2019. That's just for the second quarter. In fact, all 3 months, April, May, and June, were the biggest months. My report goes back to 2012, so I can't comment prior to 2012. But going back to 2012, April, May, and June were the largest April, Mays, and Junes that Branson has had for the tourism tax. TCD side, I don't have June numbers yet, but for April and May, that was up 40% over April and May in 2019. And just like the tourism tax, April and May were the largest months, April and May, that they've had on record for as long as my report goes back. That kind of ends for the second quarter. Things that we're working on right now that you guys will hear updates on coming up, just real quick. Our new ad agency that I had mentioned to you guys previously, Proof, they are in market now. In fact, I'm leaving here to go meet with them. They have recently done some ad testing. I'm excited to be able to share with you in my next update what our new campaign will be for 2022. We did consumer testing, 42 individuals in 6 different markets. Looking at the campaigns that we presented, it was kind of unanimous on the one that was selected. So we're real excited about the campaign we'll launch in 22. I'll be able to share that in my next update. We are also finalizing the RFP process to start our 10-year destination strategic plan. This Friday, the staff, we will make that selection on the company that we're going to use. We'll start the process in August. We're anticipating it being a 10-month process to do the 10-year strategic plan. That plan will include one-on-one interviews. It'll include resident town halls. It'll focus on product development. It'll focus on our marketing efforts. It'll focus on sports facilities, funding measures. It'll focus on where we are headed for the next 10 years as a tourism destination. So we're real excited about that and getting that out there. And then lastly, we're continuing to work on a marketing opportunity that will be specifically for the shows. This opportunity we'll be able to share more in the upcoming weeks, but we've met with some of the show owners. We're real excited about this. Once we're able to launch it, you guys will see that it's going to be a great opportunity, not just for the CVB, but for the shows, and an opportunity that we're going to work together with an upcoming marketing opportunity. So that's my update for the second quarter. I thank you for listening. Willing to answer any questions.
Jason, thank you for coming in front of us and giving us a clear and concise report. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this matter? Any of the Board of Aldermen?
Great job, man. Those numbers are impressive.
It's going well. We're excited.
I've been following those tax numbers, obviously, since the inception of the district, and we blew out the top. I'm quite proud of those numbers. I think the community is too, and appreciate the work and job you and your staff are doing over there, and the work you're doing with the theaters, and healing some old wounds. I appreciate that.
Not a problem. Can't do it without my staff and without my board of directors, so I appreciate everything that everybody's doing, so.
I ditto that. Yeah, Mary Kellogg.
She's a dandy, I tell you.
She is a dandy. You're lucky to have her over there. But yeah, and the opportunity, the show concept that we've been talking about is exciting. So I'll be glad when we can talk about that. That's very
Super
cool.
secret. Thank you, board.
Thank you very much. Now go get your work done. Item number 10.
Vote yes.
Your Honor, the next item is a resolution for the appointment
it at
of
the
a
theater.
representative and alternate to the Tri-Lakes Biosolids Joint Municipal Utility Commission. The floor is open for a motion adopting this resolution.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Cody. It's not showing up there yet.
We have you're correct, we have a motion and a second.
Okay, can we go ahead and have the vote then?
But go ahead and have a staff report. Thank you.
Staff report, my mistake. You ready for doing another one?
I'm ready to do another one.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So this resolution is to appoint Tim Glenn, our wastewater treatment division manager, as primary board member, and John Manning as the alternate to our Tri-Lakes Biosolids Joint Municipal Utility Commission. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Any of the Board of Aldermen? Let everybody jump up at once. Okay, please vote.
That motion passed 6-0.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that abbreviated report, too. You gonna
Your Honor,
stick
the
around for
next.
Go ahead.
The next item is a resolution for appointment of a representative and alternate to the Southwest Missouri Joint Municipal Utility Commission. The floor is open for a motion adopting this resolution.
Motion been made by Jamie and Clay, and seconded by Clay. Another staff report from Kendall.
Thank you. This resolution is to appoint myself as the primary board member and Errol Cordell, our Water Treatment Division Manager, as an alternate to the Southwest Missouri Joint Municipal Utility Commission. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Anybody on the board? Please vote.
Hold on, Kendall, I just want to ask one quick question. How large is that Southwest Missouri region? Is it?
Well, there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members, or 8 members, including ourselves, and then there's non-members that also contribute to it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Please vote.
That motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6024, an ordinance amending the 2021 budget to adjust monies in the general fund for ETC Institute design and administer the resident and business surveys for the city of Branson. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6024.
Moved by Ruth, seconded by Jamie. We have a motion, a second. Now we have a staff report from Stacy.
Members of the board, this is a budget amendment to adjust monies in the general fund for ETC Institute to design and administer the resident and business surveys for the city of Branson. The ETC contract will be coming before you later tonight in the amount of $21,320. However, the budget amendment we are requesting is $11,320. The planning department was able to find savings in their current budget to offset the difference. Staff recommends approval.
Okay. You going to speak to it as well, buddy? Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to speak during this matter? Any of the board? We appreciate somebody saving us money very much. Please vote.
That motion passed 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is first reading of Bill Number 6025, an ordinance approving the contract with ETC Institute for Community and Business Surveys and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion for the first reading of Bill Number 6025.
Make a motion, please. Moved by Cody, seconded by Clay. We now have a staff report from Joel Hornickel.
Good evening, members of the board. We've been working with ETC since about 2008 to conduct business and community surveys. Really, I think the mayor had made the comment, it's a way to kind of get our report card back of how we're doing with everything we provide to our citizens and businesses. So looking forward to working with them again this year. We had paused last year this effort that we would have done otherwise had it not been for COVID. Looking to do it third, fourth quarter this year with results being presented to the community and you all later this year, if not January of next year. As mentioned in the previous item, the contract for this is $21,320. We've been working with ETC for multiple years. This is an extension of their current contract. Because we did take a pause with our neighborhood grants, we were able to get a large portion of this amount. And then with the budget amendment, we have a couple of other line items in our budget. We're going to really tighten the strings on and make sure we can get this paid for without having a negative effect on anything else in the general fund. So with that, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody in the audience want to speak on this matter? Anybody on the board? Hearing none, please vote.
That motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Joel, are you saying you saved us money again?
I don't think I said that, sorry.
Okay, I saw that look. I saw that look.
Your Honor, the next item is first reading of Bill Number 6026, an ordinance approving the contract with Tingo Internet for Wi-Fi upgrades at the Branson Lakeside RV Park and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading. Moved by Jamie, seconded by Jeff. We have a staff report now from Cindy.
Mr. President, members of the board, you all heard about this in the Finance Committee, and we've done a budget amendment for it. So this item represents a contract with Tingo Internet to upgrade our Wi-Fi service at the Branson Lakeside RV Park. As I've mentioned previously, the camping industry is experiencing a boom throughout the country. The occupancy at the Branson Lakeside RV Park has increased 191% from this time last year and 75% from 2019. So we're very grateful about that. Additionally, reservations are up by 121% from 2020 and 45% from 2019. The increased demand for our sites represents a challenge for adequately supplying our guests with the opportunity to properly stream their devices for a quick and efficient manner. To address the current hardware issues, we are working with the city's IT department along with our wireless internet provider, Tingo Internet, to add 4 additional access points to the system. This addition will take us from 7 access points to 11, providing us with better density coverage to improve the quality of the network and allow RV guests better access. In addition, the bridges, which is how the internet travels from the access points to the office, will be upgraded in speed as well from 100 megabyte to 1,000 megabyte, increasing the speed about 10 times. This will cause us to better balance the data where it's going, and the cost of the new hardware system upgrades and installation is $18,777.33. A budget amendment, as I mentioned, was presented to the Board of Aldermen with final reading on July 13th. So, and this is recommended to be paid out of the internal service fund that we've been saving for the Parks Department. So staff recommends approval of the bill, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Hearing none, anybody on the board? Jeff?
Cindy, so this work's going to be performed by our current provider, right?
Right.
So this didn't have to go out for bid or anything?
It did not. It's an add to our system that we installed in 2016, so we're upgrading that system.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Birthday boy, your turn.
Cindy, I was just hoping for a more detailed explanation of how that data travels back and forth.
You should ask Chad. I have no idea.
I'm kidding. No, I have.
You need a pointer?
I don't know.
I've been very supportive of this
Sure.
since it was first presented to the Finance Committee. I'm glad to see we're getting it done. So
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
for all you're doing down there.
Thank you.
Speaking of the pointer, is there a possibility of these 3 here getting damaged by high water?
The Wi-Fi?
No.
Okay.
It's very high.
Okay.
Yeah, Jamie. It's up on the telephone poles.
Okay.
And they turn off the electric, obviously, when that rolls through.
We do.
So, yeah.
And we own the equipment at
Yes.
that point. Okay, please vote.
We might wait a minute. You have an alderman missing.
Yeah, we ran him off.
You don't give us any breaks. You got it.
Or
You guys want one?
we can go on without him, that's your choice.
What do you think? Let's go ahead and vote.
We have a vote of 5-0, and we will, for the record, show that Alderman Cooper is not voting on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that report.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading Bill Number 6027, an ordinance amending Chapter 78, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Spaces, Article 3, Public Improvements, Section 78-125 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to sidewalks to be kept free from obstruction and in good repair. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6027.
Moved by Ruth, seconded by Cody. We have a motion, a second. We now need a staff report from Keith.
Members of the board, a couple weeks ago, we brought this to you. We were asked to bring it back to you with some revisions to it. This is part of our city code proposed changes to section 78-125. to remove part of the language from section 78-125, which concerns the property owners to maintain out to the back of curb, the mowing, all the right-of-way maintenance, and includes the sidewalk maintenance when they're cracked, broken, you know, damaged or anything. That's all put on the property owners, the way it's currently worded. What we are asking, if you all would like to see this left as is, or mark through part of the language in there, which is on the attached ordinance there, and we would remove the wording under the heading of section 78-125, and in good repair. We will remove that wording, and also remove the wording, shall keep all weeds and grass adjacent to it along the sidewalk, curbstone, and gutter mowed, and shall keep the sidewalk, when the sidewalk become damaged, broken, cracked, or damaged in any way for any reason. That wording would be removed from the city code. We ask your opinions, and we're glad to follow anything you all recommend here. But in the past, for the last 30-some years, the Public Works Department has maintained the right-of-ways and the sidewalks.
Thank you for that report, Keith. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Any of the aldermen? Jeff?
So was this Alderman Fenton's suggestions? Is that what you were pulling out of this ordinance?
I still don't really understand why we're doing it in the first place, but I guess you're saying that we've maintained, or we've mowed at least, so this just cleans up that portion.
Parts of it.
My issue the
property
last
owners-
time was removing the ability to have recourse, you know, if there's issues, and I think that's been fixed with the way it's written
Let
now.
Chris answer that.
Alderman, I can speak a little bit to that, just to give you guys some background to this. Here in Missouri, we do have a duty to maintain and keep the sidewalks in good repair. And quite frankly, an abutting landowner does not have that duty. However, we can require them to share in the cost and expense of maintaining those sidewalks if we so want. The reason we need an enforceability prong in there is if the abutting landowner were to cause the damage to the sidewalk, maybe they got mad, tore it up, ran a sewer line, did whatever, then we need some sort of recourse to go after them for that. The change with regards to the mowing, that's just taking out of code what we've been doing from the city for, 36 years now. So, again, making code consistent with the practice, whether it's right or wrong, it's what we've done. So this kind of, like I said, more aligns our city code with common law in Missouri and also with our current practice here in Public Works.
And that was my issue, which I think is in here now, or it stays in here, was the ability of the city attorney. And so, yeah, I mean, it addressed the issue I had, if that was your question, yeah.
Clay, you got a statement? Question? Bruce? All right. Any other discussion? Please vote.
That motion passes 6-0.
At this point in time, we're going to take a 5-minute break for rest and recuperation. Be back in 5 minutes, please. Sorry about that.
Much better than that.
Should have known. I just should have said something. get it. All right. Let's go back into session. Item number 15.
On 16, sorry.
16, apologize.
I thought it was.
Turn the page, Bill.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading bill number 6028, an ordinance amending the adopted 2021 budget for the city of Branson to adjust monies in the tourism and transportation funds for the 2021 asphalt and overlay project. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading bill number 6028.
Motion second, please. Moved by Jamie, second by Cody. We have a motion, a second. Now have a staff report from Stacy.
Members of the board, this is a budget amendment to adjust monies in the tourism and transportation funds for the 2021 asphalt and overlay project. The contract for this project will be coming before you tonight in the amount of $1,025,630. The Transportation Department budgeted $600,000 in 2021 for asphalt overlay projects. This budget amendment is for an additional $425,630 to be transferred from the tourism fund to the transportation fund to cover the difference. Staff recommends approval.
Anybody in the audience want to speak during this for this matter? Any alderman?
I'm just curious where this particular project is, or. Okay.
It's all over the place, but it'll get answered in the next item.
Oh, all right, fair enough. I'll save my question.
Any other speakers on it from the board? Hearing none, please vote.
The motion passed 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading bill number 6029, an ordinance accepting the proposal of Blevins Asphalt Construction Company Incorporated for 2021 mill overlay patch, repair, and striping of various city streets, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading bill number 6029.
Thank you. Motion's been made by Jamie, seconded by Cody. We'll hear a staff report now from Keith.
Members of the board, 3 qualified bids were received on June 30th of this year for the 2021 mill and overlay project and striping of various city streets. Total base bids were as follows: Blevins Asphalt, $1,025,630. Capital Paving, $1,165,942, and APAC for $1,292,322. Staff recommends the contract be awarded to the low bidder, Blevins Asphalt Construction Company, in the amount of not to exceed $1,025,630. We're glad to answer any questions.
Anybody from the audience wish to speak to this matter? Anybody from the board? Just real quick, Keith. The areas you have marked off in red are obviously the ones that we're talking about.
Correct.
Are these old roads?
Well, one of them is Branson Hills Parkway there. What we do, several years ago, we had our pavement management company come in from Phoenix, Arizona, and analyzed all the city streets in the city. They gave a rating from a PCI index standpoint, pavement condition index, from 0 to 100. 100 being an excellent street, brand new street. We go by that, and we just go down there, and they are ranked according to their condition factor, and these are the ones that we look at to prioritize on our budgeting. That's how we do that.
What is the number on that 0 to 100 that determines when something needs to be done?
Anytime it gets down around 55 to 60, you need to start looking at and start budgeting. Now, we have got many, many, many streets that have rolled off the bottom that we just do not have funding for. Our budget was based on $1.5 million a year several years ago. That's the way the pavement program was set up. But we have had to scale back our projects, for the last several years due to the tax revenue and everything. that pays for these projects.
You have a question?
Can you just, I see the map, but kind of give us an overview of where these locations are?
Okay, the big one up in the top corner there, maybe Chad can zoom up a little bit, but that's Branson Hills Parkway, that one section.
Wanted to do it, didn't he?
That's a portion of Branson Hills Parkway. We got up to that where the red line stops there, Town Center Drive, 3 years ago. I can't remember exact date. But it goes all the way up to, I can't read it, it's too small on here. I'm getting old. Up to Pinehurst is where that next section will go on. And the reason, you know, a lot of these numbers are so big, that's a big wide road there, and it takes when you mill out 2 inches, and it takes a lot of tonnage of asphalt to go back in it, you know.
How long is that stretch there, Keith?
Oh, gosh, I can't remember, Alderman Cooper. I can't
Couple
remember
miles.
exactly. We do have it spelled out on our bid list, though.
So every year, you're just going through and identifying these and kind of attacking it each year. How long, once this, like this particular section, once it's repaved, how long is that good for?
It should be good for 15 to 25 years. Just depends on the amount of traffic on it and everything.
Do y'all assess it yearly? Is that a yearly, or?
No, we've got this master plan that they put together for us several years ago. And like I said a while ago, you know, a lot of them have rolled off the bottom because we did not have funding for them. And so we're trying to play catch up a little bit every year, you know.
But how often do they
Do they assess the roads?
Yeah,
Usually about every 5 to 6 years, but we've been so far behind that I don't think it's a good project to come back in and assess the roads again right now until we get caught up a little bit on our own program.
Okay.
Keith, real quick question. This one right here. Cahill Road.
Mm-hmm. It's behind Skaggs back there. Or Cox Hospital it is.
That
Those
road
old days.
that's over by Yakov's Place and
Oh, my gosh,
and the
please.
clinic, that's a private road, am I
That's
right on that?
correct, yes.
Well, that's a shame.
That's a bad road.
Yeah, it's all private. Yeah, but that's back in front of the medical center back there.
Yeah, that's,
It's pretty bad shape.
it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Jamie?
It's been cut and patched so
Yeah.
many times, I don't think there's any hope for it other than just mill it all and repave it.
That one on Branson Hills, and then it looked like that one that looked kind of like a cross. Is that Shepherd Hills Expressway and Roark? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So when these those two areas take a pretty good amount of traffic. So what's the time frame that they're looking at doing these locations? Is there going to be some road closures or?
Like this right here?
Yeah, that and the one at Branson
As
Hills.
soon as we get it passed and get the contractor scheduled, it'll go through the second reading, then he has to provide us his bonds and insurance and things like that. We'll have a
Are they going to
pre-construct-
try to like do some of that work overnight, or do we know yet, or?
Oh, I'm guessing for something of that size, you know, maybe 3 or 4 days, time they
Okay.
mill it out.
Okay.
Yep. That's another bad section, that whole
Yeah.
intersection there is pretty rough.
They will try to do it one lane at a time.
Oh,
though.
yeah, yeah. We won't
They
shut the
won't
whole
shut
road
the
down.
whole
Oh,
road
no,
down.
no.
I think that's the concern.
Yeah, no, we won't shut the whole road down.
And they won't take as long as the contractors during the dam right now, I hope, or?
Let's hope not.
It's a cute observation, my friend. Any other questions? Please vote. Thank you, Keith.
That motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6030, an ordinance amending the adopted 2021 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies in the Capital Projects Fund for the undergrounding of utilities in Segment 3 of West 76 Country Boulevard. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6030.
Moved by Jamie, seconded by Ruth. We'll now have a report from Stacy. You're living up there at the,
Members of the board, this is the last budget amendment for the night. This one is to account for the undergrounding of utilities for Segment 3 of West 76 Country Boulevard. Earlier this evening, you approved the agreement between the 76 CID and the City of Branson to cover funding for these expenses. This amendment is to account for these expenses in the Capital Projects Fund as well as the transfer in from the 76 CID Fund. The estimated cost of this project is just under $1.7 million. It will be transferred on reimbursement for actual expenses, and staff recommends approval.
anybody in the audience wish to speak on this matter? Any aldermen?
Did you say that it was going to be used for what now?
For the undergrounding of the
Was that for the
Segment 3, utility undergrounding.
I thought you said something about asphalt again.
Oh, I probably did.
Any further discussion from the board? Please vote.
That motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading Bill Number 6031, an ordinance approving the contract with CenturyLink Communications LLC for relocation costs of telecommunication facilities relating to West 76 Country Boulevard Improvements Project and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading Bill Number 6031.
Moved by Ruth, seconded by Cody. We'll now have a staff report from Keith Francis.
Members of the board, this is for part of the undergrounding of the utilities on Highway 76, basically from Presley's to the Ferris wheel. This amount will be in the amount of $111,406.37. This is for CenturyLink Communications LLC, and this will basically follow the same pattern for my next three after this one.
Okay.
Staff recommends approval, and we're glad to answer any questions.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Hearing none, anybody on the board?
Yeah,
Jeff?
Keith, so since there was this long delay on this, all of these next items, they were all rebid? Or were their numbers good from way back when?
There was one of them that changed a little bit. I think it was a CenturyLink one, went up a little bit. I can't remember which one it was.
Everybody's pretty much held the line on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, pretty close.
Okay, good,
Very
thank you.
close. Yep.
And these all make up the 1.675 million, right? So we're just-
Almost.
But we're approving contracts within that.
Yeah, the
month.
next council meeting on the 10th, we will bring White River Valley Electric's contract to you, which will total the 1.65 something million. Yeah. So if you add all of these four up tonight, they will not equal that 1.6 something. The next one, next week, or the next council meeting from White River will be, then it'll all balance out.
Anybody else? Please vote.
That motion carries 6-0.
Moving right along.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6032, an ordinance approving the contract with CenturyLink for relocation costs of telecommunication facilities relating to West 76 Country Boulevard Improvements Project and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6032.
Please make a motion, second. Jeff moved, Cody second. Staff report from Keith Francis again.
Members of the board, this is one of the other contracts with CenturyLink. This one is in the amount of $193,409.13. This is also for the same area to underground the existing utilities out there. Staff recommends approval, and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody in the audience wish to speak regarding this matter? Seeing none, anybody from the board? Please vote.
Motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading bill number 6033, an ordinance approving the contract with Show Me Technologies LLC for relocation costs of telecommunication facilities relating to West 76 Country Boulevard Improvements Project and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading bill number 6033.
Moved by Clay, seconded by Jeff. With staff report from Keith Francis.
Members of the board, this is in one of the other contracts for Show Me Technologies. This one is in the amount of $71,500. Basically, it's the same project. Staff recommends approval, and be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this matter? Anybody on the board? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carried 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of bill number 6034, an ordinance approving the contract with Sedbridge Acquisition LP DBA Suddenlink Communications for relocation costs of telecommunication facilities relating to West 76 Country Boulevard Improvements Project and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of bill number 6034.
I have a motion and a second. Moved by Clay, seconded by Jamie. Another staff report from Keith Francis.
Members of the board, this is yet another contract in the amount of $255,353.61. Be glad to answer any questions. Staff recommends approval.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this matter? Anybody on the board?
So coordination on this, do they all have their own conduit? So it's all, so they can do this at, not their leisure, but they all have to show up on the same day, pull down the same tube, right?
Yeah, we're going to make sure of that. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I think that's a very good point. We had that discussion earlier on, a couple of years ago, that there's somebody out there managing this, to make sure that they know exactly what to do and what time.
Yeah, we'll be coordinating all the utility companies. We'll have a pre-construction meeting with them to see who's going to be in there first and who's going to be in there last and who's going to do what and when. And a lot of the work will have to be done at night, too.
Well, I mean, a lot of that was out in front of my place had already been late. I mean, as far as the
duct bank has.
Yeah, that's
yes,
all, right.
yeah. But the overhead stuff still has to go underground. Yeah.
That's what you're going to do, right?
Huh?
Huh? That's what I thought.
I'm afraid of heights.
Anybody else to speak on this matter? Please vote. Getting it done. It's a really important thing.
That motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is first reading bill number 6035, an ordinance amending Chapter 6 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to food sale requirements for establishments that serve alcoholic beverages. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading bill number 6035.
Moved by Cody, seconded by Jeff. Staff report from Clarissa LeBeck.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. The bill before the board tonight is to bring one of our liquor control efforts back in line with state of Missouri licensing requirements. As detailed in the staff report tonight, Alderman Cooper requested staff to bring this proposed ordinance before the Board of Aldermen for consideration after a citizen business owner here in town contacted him who expressed concerns over the additional burden of having to operate a restaurant, resort, or microbrewery here in city limits in order to obtain a license to sell light wine or beer. His business model simply did not support operating a restaurant. So a little bit of background on liquor control here in the state of Missouri. Liquor control and licensing is controlled by the Missouri Department of Public Safety, Alcohol, and Tobacco Control. It's a state agency under the Department of Public Safety. All licenses, all liquor licenses in the state are issued through that part of the agency. And the city of Branson, over the years, has added additional layers of restrictions on liquor licenses here in city limits for a variety of reasons. What this ordinance does is it simply removes one of those additional restrictions that has been posed on the citizens and business owners by the city of Branson. specifically the requirement that intoxicating liquor licenses can only be issued to a restaurant, bar, resort, or for some licenses, a microbrewery. And now, as a brief point of clarification, this is something that's not laid out in the staff report, but I've been contacted by a member of our community. A standalone liquor by the drink license could still not be issued within city limits under these proposed changes, okay? Again, what's happened here is we have state control and we have local control. We've added additional restrictions at the local level. In order for a standalone liquor by the drink license, the city of Branson would have to have a petition come before this board that's signed by 1/5 of the citizens, and a decision to allow that would have to go to a vote of the people. I've looked back through our records dating back to 1934, and such a vote never occurred. So because an affirmative vote by a majority of the voters never materialized, the state would not be able to, even with our code change, issue what I would call a standalone liquor by the drink license for a traditional bar or tavern, as is authorized under state law. That would be without meeting some other state requirement, be it a restaurant, bar, microbrewery, fraternal organization. There's a laundry list of exceptions in state law. An additional thing to be aware of for those that are concerned that this is going to open the floodgates to taverns. Chapter 94, which is our zoning and use code, does not have use standards for taverns. Okay, and a tavern means any licensed premises that sells liquor by the drink, which derives the majority of its annual gross sales from alcoholic beverages and does not qualify to be categorized as a resort, restaurant, bar, amusement place, or place of entertainment as defined. So a state-permitted alcohol sale in the city limits would have to be an accessory use to something else. A grocery store that allows its shoppers to drink a beer while they're walking around shopping for groceries. That's commonplace in a lot of national chains today. That's an accessory use to the primary purpose of that business, which is a grocery store. So with all that being said, based on what's been brought before us, staff does recommend approval of this, we don't believe this would cause an influx of traditional bars and taverns into the community, but rather would provide opportunities for existing establishments that do not wish to have to operate a restaurant or resort to provide light wine and beer to customers. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody in the audience have any questions on this? Craig?
Questions or just general comments?
Either.
Okay. Craig Westcott, 3388 Green Mountain Drive. I didn't contact Clay about this, but it's something I think it's a good question, because I think that, and I'll use, since he's standing here, we use him as an example, or our service establishment. People travel for experiences. A lot of experiences that Branson provides. You're sitting on a patio looking over the lake, or you're watching the sunset off of wherever. You're able to have a drink, and they do prepare food. I think an experience, it can be add-on experience for if someone wanted to go to a show, not just Clay's, anybody's, and watch the show and enjoy a beverage. This basically keeps that from happening, as I understand it, if he's not preparing food at 50% or whatever, which is tacked on by it's an ordinance tacked on by the city, if I understand. Same with us. I mean, as an example, with the Ferris wheel, we've had groups contact us, actually directors, tour operators, about this experience we provide to fall groups mainly. The George Ferris experience. George Ferris comes out, he talks about the history of the wheel, and then they take the 15-minute ride, and many of them have said this would be great if we could have a glass of wine for that 15 minutes or whatever. And honestly, we kind of looked into it, but we didn't look far because it was so many steps and really kind of impossible unless we made it a private event and all these sorts of things. So point being, it just kind of opens up that add-on experience for things that don't prepare food. I'm not saying one way or another that we're really trying to do that, but when we start getting asked by a segment of our customers that, hey, this isn't, why not add this to our experience? we like to be able to at least explore it and not just kind of be shut down with extra rules. So wonder, beyond the state, all the rules, and I'm no expert on all of that, what is really necessary in Branson, Missouri versus other places, especially when travel, people are looking for those experiences, and some people do like to enjoy while they're on those experiences, so.
Was that a question for Chris to answer there?
Yes.
Okay. Just didn't know if you were going to answer the question.
No, it was a comment, I think,
Okay.
more than anything.
All right. Clay, since he started this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, now see, that's what I want. Clay started this. Here we go. Well, first of all, yeah, I mean, it was a request. I'd had some, is Clay trying to, is Clay promoting drinking in Branson and trying to get everybody to sell, beer and this and that? No, not at all. I was approached by a community member who's a business owner, and he had come to me about, this ordinance where you have to have, he has an axe throwing place, and he's like, man, people come in here, they just want to throw an axe for 30, 45 minutes and have a beer, but with the ordinance, which is kind of ironic, let's drink some beer and throw axes. But anyhow, it's very popular. You should try it. Now I have to sell hot dogs and nachos and pretzels and all this stuff. He said, I made like $98 on Memorial Day weekend. I'm spending more on throwing out food because there's not enough people that's want it just so I can sell a glass of wine or a beer. Could you talk to somebody? Sure, I came to city, passed the message along. They did some work on it. And the only thing that I had, I could care less either way, honestly. I could have sold alcohol in my theater 10 years ago. I know there's a couple of theaters in town, and that's great for people that want to. We choose not to, and that's fine, and the ones that do, that's fine too. I'd asked Mr. Lebec about the drink-to-go thing, because I'd kind of thought that was in the new ordinance, but I just want to be clear that that's not in there, right?
Correct. That's actually coming down the line. Governor Parson signed a bill, I think it's Senate Bill 28, where, if you recall, during last year when all the restaurants were hurting, they issued an executive order that allowed for restaurants to allow basically to-go alcohol service. Well, that's now permanently affixed in Chapter 311. That goes into play August 28th. So again, that's not a part of this. It's not what we're looking at today. That may be something, if this board desires, we can address at a later time once it does become law in the state of Missouri. But again, this is just literally uncoupling food from being able to serve alcohol.
Which is what the business owner approached me about.
Right.
That was it, bottom line. So that's why I wanted to get clear on the to-drink, to-go thing. Also, a question I have, if this does pass, there's a couple of steps. You don't just get a city business license and you're able to go sell beer and wine. You got to get a liquor license or what?
You got to start with the state first.
The state, and then you have to get another one through the city of Branson.
Yeah, so think about it this way. It's a two-step process. I got to get permission from dad first, which is the state, or mom first in my household, and then permission from dad later. And if mom disagrees, you can't ask dad and vice versa. So it's one of those, you got to give agreement on both before you can get your license.
And how do they, if let's say a business wants to, maybe Craig wants to get a beer and wine for his guests or offer that, how would he be, what process would he have to go through? What is the steps and how would he be vetted? How rigorous is the vetting process for getting that?
It's no different than any other business here in the city. So again, it's a variety of all the various departments, because you'd have to get, number one, does he have a business license? Number two, does he have a license to serve the type of alcohol he wants to at the state level? Okay, is he current on all his fees? Is he not a convicted felon? Things like that. There's a litany of things and a punch list that Mr. Henry, who runs that department for the finance department, goes through. So again, it's not just a show up with $50, here's your license, good luck, have a great day. There's those components. And there's also use components too. We've got to make sure that that facility or that idea fits with our Chapter 94, the way our planning, the way we want to see businesses thrive here in the community.
So that commission at a state level, that's who controls that, the commit there, and then there's a department here at the city that says yes or no, or puts the stamp of approval on it?
Yeah, this is the same tension we see with anything. We have state control and local control. At the local level, we can always make our restrictions more restrictive than at the state level. We can't make them less restrictive. In this arena, which is Chapter 6, dealing with alcohol, over time, we have added on a number of restrictions because that's what the community wanted with related to alcohol. But with that being said, it always starts at the state. This is the state's kitty, if you will.
Do you see, if this passed, do you see that this would become every T-shirt shop in town and do you see that you know what I'm saying?
Law firms.
Huh?
Law firms.
Law firms, you can get a beer, yeah, see. Do you see that being like people, maybe Jamie's gonna have beer at the new Puma shop down there, I don't know.
I think you have economic forces at play. We can look north to other communities, and it stabilizes, okay?
Yeah.
If everybody's offering it, it far exceeds the demand. But, some examples, you got, it's commonplace, my wife is one of these people. She goes and gets her nails done. Well, the place she would get her nails done, they offer a glass of wine. Mm-hmm. That's an ancillary thing to that actual beautification thing. So that's where we would see this. But again, like anything else new, it may peak, but it's going to eventually stabilize to what the market supports.
Right. Go ahead.
Cody? Can you run back or clarify what you were talking about with going to vote? You had to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that just particularly for liquor?
That is for liquor by the drink. So what I would call spirits, tequila, vodka, things that are in excess of, I think, 5%. But in order to do that, there has to be a petition signed by 1/5 of the voters here, or the citizens here in city limits. That would have to be presented to this board, and then it would go to a vote of the people to make that determination. And that basically is kind of the stopgap, if you will, to open up the city to taverns.
Yeah, so in other words, you're not gonna have a bunch of bars just opening up because they're not gonna be able to sell all types of alcoholic beverages. This is really changing or bringing the restrictions in line with the state as it pertains to wine and beer.
Yeah, you have to understand, I think there's some concern here. If we look at, and I'm going to pull the ordinance up here, specifically, if you look at lines 116 through 118, I think that's where the heartburn or the confusion lies, because part of this bill calls for removing this license can only be issued to a restaurant, bar, resort, or microbrewery. That's surplus language. That is unnecessary in statutory construction because number 4 says sale of liquor by the drink, such number and type as may licensed by the State Division of Alcohol and Tobacco Control. That additional sentence is unnecessary because the state controls this. So again, until there's a vote, until there's a petition and it's successful, the state's going to look at this and go, whoa, we're not going to issue this at this point. Okay.
Okay, to clarify, the petition and the vote would be to have it citywide, right? It would have to go to a vote?
Correct.
For the liquor by the drink?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not a per instance thing, it's a.
Correct, it's citywide, it's saying, hey, we're gonna open this up, we want Broadway Street, like you have in Nashville, or Beale Street in Memphis, right here in Branson.
So those are our guardrails, if you will, to.
Well, that's the first guardrail, and then the second guardrail is planning. We don't define tavern in 94, so again, this would have to go through P&Z, this would have to come back before the board, and we'd have to have if we got over that vote hurdle, we would have to have a serious discussion of how are we gonna make this look? What's it gonna look like? How does it fit with our community plan, which we know that's gonna get reworked here, hopefully shortly. So again, there's 2 guardrails kind of controlling how this would eventually occur.
Right. And I talked to the citizen today and discussed it with Clay before we came here, but it just didn't work for his model. Like he said, it's not a bar, people aren't going to make, this is our evening throwing axes. So it just didn't fit his model to have the food component. And to his credit, he tried it, and it just didn't work. And I've been here 32 years, and this has been a bug for a lot of people over those years, you know, doing the catering license or BYOB, or you got to give it away, and this, people couldn't work it into their model. And obviously, it's taxes coming in, it's profit for the business owner, but you know, this has been an issue, and I think it'll solve a lot of problems with people being able to structure it and do it the way they want to do it.
Absolutely, and just as a reminder, all that's before the board today, it's not any of the things coming down the pipeline from Governor Parsons, the bill he signed into law. This is literally uncoupling food from liquor.
Right.
Or not liquor, let me restate that because that's the wrong term.
Beer and wine.
Alcoholic beverages.
Yes.
Okay? And then again, saying, hey, state of Missouri, you're doing a good job in this arena, let's let you do what you need to do.
So, last question, do we still have a liquor czar?
Yeah, Matt Henry.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then, do we still run a limited amount of packaged liquor licenses?
Yes, there are limits throughout city code with regards to the number and quantity. Again, we didn't touch any of that today. Likewise, the bill that I keep referencing expanded hours. So Sunday hours have now been expanded significantly. Right. We're still at our, remember, we can be more restrictive. We didn't touch that either. Okay, so again, we're just talking about food and coupling it from intoxicating beverages.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other, Stan?
Mr. President, if I could, I rarely speak on these items, but I want to make sure something is crystal clear. And that is that I don't drink whatsoever, never had. My mother was an alcoholic, it killed her. I saw what can happen. That's why I don't drink. But when Alderman Cooper brought this forward, it was not him pushing this bill whatsoever at all. And I understood there was a mass outcry on social media or whatever that Alderman Cooper was trying to get alcohol all over the city or make beer joints everywhere. That is not factual. That is not true. Was never done. And when he brought it forward to, actually it was Assistant City Administrator Manning and City Attorney LeBeck, it was simply at the request of one of our business owners. So I wanted to make sure that's crystal clear.
Thank you, Stan. Just thank you for setting up the guardrails and for us to restate this is not to make Branson the Wild Wild West kiddie saloon and to bring this action consistent with the state of Missouri's rules and regulations. Am I correct on that?
You are.
Okay. Please vote. Won't be able to see Matt and Festus. What'd you do, buddy?
I don't know.
I think you got to
Oh, wait, hit that?
oh, there you go.
I got it.
Beat it.
Got it.
The motion carried 5-1. We have Alderman Denham voting no, Alderman Skanes voting yes, Alderman Coover voting yes, Alderman Fenton voting yes, Alderman Whitus voting yes, and Alderman C voting yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Item
Your
number
Honor,
24.
the next item is the first reading bill number 6036, an ordinance amending Chapter 58, Section 38 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to failure to identify to a police officer. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading bill number 6036.
Someone please make a motion in a second. Moved by Clay, second by Ruth. We have a report now from Attorney LeBeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a part of some of our cleanup efforts that we've alluded to in previous board meetings involving our city code, and it also addresses some of the challenges that our police department has when they are investigating crime. What this does is it corrects the language for the offense of failure to identify here in city code. Right now, failure to identify is basically a situation, or one version of it, is when a person commits an offense, if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence, or date of birth to a police officer who has lawfully arrested the person and requested the information. So we're changing that, and the question is, why are we asking you to change that? Reason is because in 2004, the Supreme Court of the United States, in an opinion drafted by Justice Kennedy and joined by Chief Justice Rehnquist, O'Connor, Scalia, and Thomas, basically held that a statute requiring suspects to disclose their names during what's called a Terry stop, a valid Terry stop, does not violate the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unreasonable searches and seizures if the statute first requires reasonable suspicion of criminal involvement and does not violate the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination if there's no allegation that their names could have caused an incrimination. So again, this holding came down in 2004. It was a Nevada case. So in looking at that and looking at our language for failure to identify, we're bringing before the board a real subtle change here, but we're changing it to say, we're requesting you to change it today to say that a person commits an offense if he intentionally refuses to give his name, residence, address, or date of birth to a police officer upon request when lawfully detained by the officer. Because right now, the way it's currently worded, that person has to be arrested. And our Supreme Court has said that's not necessary. Okay, and this creates some enforcement challenges for Branson Police Department. So that's what this is today. Staff does recommend approval. I think it's going to have a positive effect on these situations where people refuse to give their identity during a criminal investigation, and it really limits law enforcement's ability to do their job. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know Chief Matthews is as well.
Any comments or questions? Marshall?
Marshall Howden, 106 Rose O'Neill. So just quick question. Basically, is it that standard of probable cause, basically, in order to have to detain somebody? So if someone's just walking down the sidewalk and an officer asked him, that wouldn't reach this level, correct?
I'm looking to the President whether I can answer a direct question under decorum.
If you want to answer that question, it's up to you.
It's a little bit different than probable cause. Reasonable suspicion is a slightly lower standard. So an officer sees some, we'll say some suspicious activity that they can articulate. Standard situation would be people standing on a street corner at 3 o'clock in the morning. As a cop car drives by, they start throwing stuff out and into the gutter. In that situation, there may be an opportunity for an officer to stop, ask some questions. And if that person refuses to provide relevant information, this will give the officer a vehicle to obtain information to figure out what's going on.
Chief Matthews, you don't have to run up here. We got time.
Let me see if I can put it in, excuse me, cop language. Jeff Matthews, your police chief. Reasonable suspicion, as he said, is a lower standard than the probable cause. Reasonable suspicion to a police officer is we have to have reasonable suspicion that somebody has, is, or will commit a criminal offense. And under those circumstances, we can stop and temporarily detain that person while we investigate that has, is, or will commit a criminal offense. He used the example of throwing things in the gutter. The one I like to use, 3 o'clock in the morning, dark alley. You see a person, they got a screwdriver. You had past break-ins in that area. That would be a reasonable suspicion stop. What's your name? I don't have to tell you. Right now, we have nothing to go on that.
So if they refuse, right now as it is, you ask them that question and they refuse to answer you, what do you do?
The reason this actually came up is we've been using another city ordinance that was really not designed for this. So I went to the legal and I said, what can we do to get us in line with what the courts are asking us to do?
And if this, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
if this passes and they refuse, then what power does this give you? I mean, at that point, you know what I mean?
Well, then the officer has to make a finding of probable cause if this ordinance has been violated. And then it's up to the officer and the officer's discretion whether it's worthy of a citation. That citation would come to the municipal prosecutor, who would be me. I would review it, the police reports, the body cams, all the information attended to it, and make a determination if this new section of our city code has been violated. If so, I would sign the citation, file it into our court, and then that would start the criminal process going. The end result, if the person is found guilty of this offense, this is where it gets a little dicey, because with all of our city codes, is after Senate Bill 5, they kind of change the rules on us. We have in city code, under our general penalty provision, which is section 1-13, that offense can be up to a $500 fine or up to 90 days in jail. Okay, Senate Bill 5 came down, changed the rule. That was something that was sponsored and advocated for by our current Attorney General. And they put some conditions and some handcuffs, if you will, on what a municipality can do. And specifically what they did is they said that for municipal ordinance violations committed within a 12-month period beginning the first violation is $200 for the first municipal ordinance violation. That includes court costs. However, there is a carve-out here, and this is, I'm looking at section 479.353, and that allows the court, that's not me, but the judge, to sentence a person to confinement under a couple of circumstances. The first being any violation involving alcohol or controlled substances, violations endangering the health or welfare of others, or in this circumstance, eluding or giving false information to a law enforcement officer. And I don't mean to lawyerize this because, but I think it's important to understand that. So there would be a potential opportunity under this ordinance where it could rise to jail time. There also could be opportunities that would just be a simple fine. But again, that would be a case-by-case determination. You're looking at the discretion of law enforcement, discretion of the prosecutor, and ultimately the decision of the judge if this person is found guilty.
Ruth?
So just to clarify, the end result would be the same regardless. It would just be the opportunity to have a higher fine or to be able to put someone.
Right now, that's the situation. The fine, the penalty doesn't change. It's the same as whether you pass this or not, the fine and the penalty for this event is as is. Okay, all this is doing is this is just bringing it in line with precedent, with our case law, so that our law enforcement officers are given the opportunity to have another tool in their toolbox, if you will, when they do show up on that potential burglar suspect in the alleyway at 3 o'clock in the morning behind Clay Cooper's Theater with a set of pry bars, and that person refuses to give them their name and address. Well, that's problematic, okay? Because right now, we're using a different city code to get there, which wasn't really designed for that, okay?
So in that scenario, the example you just used, and one of Chief Matthews' officers walks up there and the suspect refuses to give any information, you can't do nothing about it, right? But by changing this.
Now you can.
Now you have.
The only way the officer could do something is if he could develop enough information to arrest that person. So what it basically boils down to is that person would have to be mid-act, breaking into your building before they could do something, because that would give him the authority to put handcuffs on that person.
And wouldn't you say, Chief, in most circumstances, if somebody's non-compliant and not wanting to give information, there's usually a reason for it, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Before we go on any further, I just want to see what I have to do with the rules, because I believe Brian wants to speak, and we've closed off that discussion. Can I waive that rule to allow him to speak?
You can ask your city attorney. It's decorum, I believe.
Okay, let's finish with the Alderman, Brian, real quick.
And this would probably be for Jeff, but does this help you with a claim of sovereignty? Do you get that, or how do you handle that?
We do get that occasionally, not as often as I got it in Texas, but we do get that.
Right. So, I mean, even if you pulled them over before they had to commit the crime, but just a standard probable cause traffic stop, I mean, how do you handle that? The sovereignty
So with probable, if we have probable cause to initiate the arrest, then they have to tell us under the current. This is for the reasonable suspicion temporary detention stop that we're trying to address,
Gotcha.
shy of probable cause.
Okay. So one way
As
you're,
is or will commit a criminal offense.
you're going to haul them in one way or another? If they refuse to give you any information?
Under the reasonable suspicion, I believe we were told that it's a citation.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Any other alderman? Want to waive the rule and allow Brian to be able, I'm sorry. Ruth, you have something?
Well, you had your screwdriver and screen door scenario. So what if someone is innocent and they just don't want to give their name? So they don't give their name, all of a sudden this innocent person becomes a criminal because they did not want to give their name. And I don't know, I just feel that's another right given away if we're going to have the
So
same.
let me see if
result.
let me see if I can help you, and not to argue, but my standard of reasonable suspicion and probable cause is much different than what the courts use to determine proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't get there as a police officer. That's something for the judge and the jury to come to where you are.
Yes, so to answer that a little bit more detail, there's basically what I would call 4 levels in any criminal or ordinance violation case. You've got reasonable suspicion, you got probable cause, that's police arena. When that comes to a prosecutor, whether it's at the municipal level or the state level or even the federal level, we analyze the case not under a probable cause standard. We rather analyze it under a reasonable probability of conviction standard. Think about that between probable cause and guilty, okay? If it doesn't meet that threshold that it's more likely or not that a crime's occurred and I have a reasonable probability of getting a conviction, then I likely will not file it unless there's other extenuating circumstances. By the time that case gets to the judge is dealing with reasonable doubt, okay? Reason and common sense, and that's the ultimate standard. So that innocent person, there are basically 4 checks in the system before it finally gets to trial to an end result. And then in the municipal level, it goes even one step further. I'll even take it one step further. Let's say I'm wrongly charged of this offense. I'm wrongly prosecuted. The judge at the municipal level decides, you know what? He's guilty. I have the right to a de novo, okay, here in the state of Missouri, which allows me to get a second bite of the apple. I can actually petition for this case to go up to the circuit court, and I can have a jury of my peers make a decision, or another judge make a decision. So again, municipal court has an additional protection that a criminal misdemeanor or criminal felony does not have.
Well, I just feel we're innocent until proven guilty, and I think making this change doesn't even make sense because we're going to get the same end result if someone's going to get arrested, whether they give their name or not. I don't feel that this board should be making this type of a decision. That's just my opinion.
I don't think a citation is proof of guilt. I mean, you still have to go through the process. I'm curious how you're going to address Fifth Amendment on this.
In what context, Alderman Penn?
Well, if you ask that information and they invoke their Fifth Amendment privilege, I'm thinking of in the context of like a debtor's exam on a bankruptcy case.
Yeah, okay.
So in a civil context,
Yeah.
whether you're guilty of a crime or not, you can actually invoke the Fifth Amendment. That's been something that's been in Missouri case law for several years now. So if there's any chance that giving this information could incriminate them and they invoke their Fifth Amendment, how are you addressing that?
That's a great question. That's something that the Hill Bill case in 2004 directly addressed. So if there is a situation where a name could have caused an incrimination, underlying offense, whatever, then again, there are procedural vehicles to bring that up. Motion to suppress, the prosecutor looking at this going, oh, identity is relevant to the underlying offense that they were investigating. Well, we can't cite them for this. So again, being a prosecutor for a long time now, I trust in our justice system, and I trust that these procedural safeguards going all the way up will catch those situations. But again, our Supreme Court addressed that specifically and said that if there's a potential for self-incrimination by giving your identity, that poses a problem, and that's something that should be excluded out.
Chief, out of 100 instances, how many times has this happened that a suspect is non-compliant and won't give you their name or why you here? Or, I mean, can you ballpark that, or?
I don't know if I can put it in those terms. It does happen. We have a lot of repeat offenders, and I've addressed the board in previous annual report updates and talked about the 30 and 40 people that are repeat offender multiple times that we deal with. Our officers have a reasonable knowledge of our offenders, but we do run across people who refuse, that we don't know who they are, and we find them in those temporary detention type situations shy of that probable cause for arrest, and we ask for identity.
Well, it just happened in Stone County over the weekend, I believe, where a lady was arrested and gave false information, and turns out she had multiple warrants, felony warrants out for her arrest, and it took some time. They eventually figured that out, but I mean, I see this as a problem. If we don't have the ability to get that information and make sure we're keeping our streets safe, and so the change makes sense to me. I was just curious how we were going to address that.
Anybody else on the board?
Just one last question.
Go ahead.
Is there something on the state books or our books that you have to, when you're in public, have identification?
Rock, paper, scissors, this one? No.
So nothing?
No.
That answers my question.
My one question, Chief, and I appreciate your patience, you all. In those instances where this is a repeat offender and they know obviously who this individual is, they would not be invoking this particular section to pound them on the head.
Chances are correct. We would not be doing that because we know that person.
Thank you. Brian, thank you for your patience.
Real quick, I just want to add one. It depends, to Alderman C's point. Driving a vehicle, there are certain offenses where you obviously have to have identification on you.
Walking the street.
But there's no general ID requirement.
Brian, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. I'm Brian Seitz, State Representative, 1805 Miller Drive here in Branson. And I think the first question I was going to have was answered by Alderman Fenton, the Fifth Amendment right. And I think that's very important due to self-incrimination and so forth. But the second would be, I'm in total agreement with the chief and with the others, and I see what you're trying to do. You know, you see somebody with a screwdriver or a hacksaw or something like that, and they're standing near the Coke machine. You know what they're about to do, or you can assume what they're about to do. But there have been ordinances in the past, and I don't want to open up that can of worms, but in the recent past, and we've talked a lot about vaccine passports that are going to be coming up in the legislature, and there was some discussion had last night at a town hall meeting that I had about that. If ordinances are passed that some of us are in total disagreement with, maybe a future mask mandate, a vaccination passport mandate, or something like that, would the officers have the ability to walk up to an individual, maybe not wearing a mask? Maybe there's a group of individuals, 5 or 6 of them together, they're hanging out in the Walmart parking lot. You know, they should be working, they should be tired and home asleep, but they're hanging out in the Walmart parking lot. Are people allowed, or would they be allowed, if there's a new ordinance, to go up to those individuals because they may not have been vaccinated, they may not be wearing a mask? You know, what's your name? Why aren't you complying to this law or this regulation? So I'm not talking about a burglar or someone, you know, a peeping Tom or something like that. I'm talking about future ordinances. Let's keep in mind future ordinances that this may have something, this new regulation may have something to do with. I think that could be a concern, and I'm not totally against this, but it's just something my son Taylor mentioned it to me, and I thought I should bring it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you, Chief. Gotta turn your computer back up. This high-tech world. High-tech,
The motion carries 5-1. Alderman Denham votes no. Alderman Skanes votes yes. Alderman Cooper votes yes. Alderman Fenton votes yes. Alderman Whitus votes yes. Alderman C votes yes. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading Bill Number 6037, an ordinance amending Section 30-31 and Appendix A of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to Sheriff's Retirement Fund surcharge. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6037.
May I have a motion and a second? Motion made by Jeff and seconded by Jamie. Staff report now from Attorney Lebec.
Thank you, Mr. President. Basic situation here is this bill is just removing a fee from our fee table for our municipal court. Prior to June 29th, we were collecting a $3 surcharge on every single every single ordinance case here in the city of Branson. So our court costs were $31.50 in total. $3 of that went to the Sheriff's Retirement Fund. What happened is on June 1st of this year, our Supreme Court here in the state of Missouri decided a case with regards to the constitutional validity of assessing a sheriff's surcharge on court costs, and they said that was unconstitutional. So as a result of that, on June 29th, Supreme Court issued an order, the presiding judge, that basically updated the statewide schedule of court costs, removing that $3 surcharge. So if we leave this on the books, it shouldn't be there. It's unconstitutional. I'm just asking your permission to get it off there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak to this matter? Any of us? Seeing none, please vote.
That motion carries 6-0.
I don't even want to think about what this fund was used for.
Retirement.
Okay. Nice dicey move there, my friend. Item number 26.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6038, an ordinance approving the real estate donation agreement with Real Estate Recovery LLC for the donation of property and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6038.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a unique situation where we've been offered a parcel of land. What happened is in March of this year, we were approached by a LLC operating here in the state of Missouri that had purchased a piece of land near our Branson Recplex, approximately 156 acres, give or take. They purchased it from a tax collector sale, okay? They purchased it, if you look at the case law behind it, with the idea that they could get back taxes and back CID assessments removed from that property. Those total $1.3 million, give or take. It's outlined specifically in the staff report. They lost that case. So the Court of Appeals found against them. So those assessments, those taxes stuck to that piece of property. So there's only basically two pathways for that, or actually three pathways for that property to go. They can try to sell it to somebody that's willing to pay those taxes. They can donate it to a 503, a charitable organization, or they can give it to a municipality. When they give that property to a municipality, those past due taxes and special assessments would not be collectible during the ownership of the property. So if we were to take it, that land, those assessments would basically freeze. Okay, so that's the good news. The bad news is if the city does decide, and you all decide to take this donation, if at some point we ever decide to sell it, or like we did at Ballparks of America, have a lease on top of it, then those assessments and those taxes, there's a risk they would come due. So again, this is a take and keep and hold. So that's where we are with this. With those risks in mind, we did a lot of due diligence on this. We spent some time with Cindy as far as what opportunities would be available for this property. And we're recommending that the board accept this donation because we do believe it's going to provide a public benefit and serve a public purpose for the city of Branson. It is consistent with our Community Plan 2030 because it's going to improve the quality of life of the citizens by addressing 3 areas: open space, parks, and our recreational policies. So staff recommends approval with those risks in mind. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this matter? Any board members?
Mayor or President.
Yes, sir.
So you said that the meter would stop on the taxes and the assessment.
Yep.
So if we held on to it for 20 years, the meter's not going to still be running, right?
Correct.
Okay, just to clarify.
Correct. They don't tax municipalities
Gotcha.
yet.
Cody?
Chris, and this money, particularly this SID assessment, that's money for that Branson Hills
Correct.
SID, part of that overall development of that area. So,
Correct.
I mean, this one I've kind of struggled with because on the one hand, you know, it's a open piece of property we can use in our Parks Department. At the same time, it seems like we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot on the SID area by saying, well, there's almost $900,000 owed, and essentially we're never going to collect it.
Correct. That is the risk there. There's no denying that. We consume it, that goes away until we decide to sell it. So again, that's not a legal issue in the sense, as you know, because we are legally allowed to do this. That is do we want to put that on the CID in that regard or on the county in that regard? So that's a board decision. That's for you all to decide. You know, does the public benefit, does the benefit under our community plan outweigh that potential harm that is caused to the CID and to the county? And again, just for context, this piece of property is literally a valley. I mean, I would, very limited use for it.
So what you're saying is nobody would give $1 million for that piece of property?
If they would, they wouldn't be trying to give it to us.
I got you.
And then, of course, he would have to pay those taxes, right?
Correct, so it'd actually have to be $1 million plus whatever.
Right, so there's a pretty good chance he's not going to.
Yeah, so the benefit, you know, in full disclosure, as you can see in the agreement, they are going to take an operating loss on this. So the city would be filling out an IRS form to show that, hey, this has been donated, it's been gifted over to the city.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So this donation, is there going to be anything in exchange for it now or in the future?
I guess I don't follow. The only thing that the agreement contemplates is us providing the appropriate IRS documentation showing that we're doing this. They will convey to us the property via quitclaim deed if this board approves it. It's not a general warranty deed because it's a tax sale, but it'll be quitclaim.
Anybody else? Real quick question. This is just going to be used for trails, hiking, biking, et cetera, et cetera?
I'm not going to answer that because I don't want to get in trouble with Cindy. I'll let her answer that.
Thank you, Bud.
That's definitely the plan. We looked at this piece of property a lot of years ago, and as Chris mentioned, it's definitely in a big valley, so there's no opportunity for like ball fields or something like that. So we're very excited about this. It's a big piece of property and excited about developing trails and biking things and all kinds of things we think the community could really benefit from. We recently shared a presentation with the board about kind of our trails, and then we get to talk about it in our advisory park board. So a lot of excitement. So hoping this is a possibility.
Would you just reiterate the size of this property?
I think it's, oh, wow, 156 acres. So it's right there behind the Recplex. Do you all know kind of where it's at?
There's a map in the staff report.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or statements by the board or the city manager? Hearing none, please vote. 156 acres. We need to hold a board meeting out there.
The motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6039, an ordinance approving an addendum to the intergovernmental cooperative agreement between the City of Branson and Taney County, Missouri for animal control and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. The floor is open for a motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6039.
May I have a motion and a second? Jamie made the motion, seconded by Jeff. Staff report from Chief Matthews.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is an amendment to our intergovernmental cooperative agreement between us and Taney County as it pertains to animal services. I'm actually going to ask you to vote this down tonight so that we can work with Taney County on some of the language to make it more beneficial to the city of Branson. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody from the audience wish to speak on this? Any of the aldermen? Chief has asked us to vote this down. Please note that. Yeah, big red dot. I pushed that button more than once.
Not good.
I didn't do it.
Is it me?
I'm not registering Alderman Fenton.
Cody.
Do you want a voice vote?
Nay.
That item was defeated 0-6.
Time for Ned's first reader here.
Your Honor, the next item is the first reading of Bill Number 6040, an ordinance approving the renewal of the memorandum of understanding with the Missouri Department of Public Safety pertaining to the Law Enforcement Support Office Program and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement.
May I have a motion?
The
and a
floor is
sec-
open for a
Sorry.
motion to approve the first reading of Bill Number 6040.
May I have a motion and a second, please? Moved by Clay, seconded by Jamie. Chief, we have another report from you, sir.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is an ordinance seeking renewal of a memorandum of understanding with the Missouri Department of Public Safety, allowing the Branson Police Department, the city of Branson, to get equipment through the Law Enforcement Support Office program. These are surplus Department of Defense items that the Secretary of the Defense has said are available for law enforcement purposes. And we've been in this program for a number of years, and this is just a renewal of that. We request approval.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody from the audience wishing to speak regarding this matter? Anybody on the board? Hearing none, please vote. Thank you, Chief.
Motion carries 6-0. Your Honor, the next item is the disbursements. The floor is open for a motion to acknowledge receipt of disbursements from June 4th, 2021 through June 24th, 2021.
May I have, please have a motion and a second? Moved by Jeff, seconded by Cody. Any discussion on this matter? Please vote.
That motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Now we're down to the reports, and I will remove myself to the very, very last, and starting with Alderman Denham.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I attended the Town Hall Freedom Forum at God and Country Theater last night. There were about 250 people present. It was a great turnout. We heard Representative Brian Seitz and Senator Moon present, also had Q&A, and there are going to be some more in the near future, so keep your ears open. Branson, you will be hosting another Liberty Lecture. Tom Martz, he is an expert on our Missouri Constitution. He'll be presenting. I've heard him present before. I've gone through to some of his teachings. He does an amazing job. That's going to be August 7th at 10 a.m. at the Hughes Theater. Regarding the sewer sales tax, I do realize that the dollars are important, but I think even more important is that we need to really focus on how those dollars are spent. Our focus needs to be on needs and not wants, and we need to focus on the criteria that was, that Mr. Albritton stated, environmental benefits and critical projects. We need to keep in mind we have the 9 subdivisions that were discussed, and they need to come in compliance with federal regulations. And I believe our money is best spent on our citizens here in the city of Branson, and not private development. I think that's the best way to spend our money. And then lastly, I just wanted to respond to criticism from Audrey Richards earlier this evening regarding our mayor's absence tonight. Our mayor is just like us. He's just a normal human being that needs to be able to take time to be with his family and get away for a few days. I don't think that criticizing his absence this evening was in order, and I support our mayor very much. He does a great job. He's been under immense stress for 1.5 years, and we're very grateful to have him. So I just wanted to make that comment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Denham. Alderman Cooper?
Well, I do agree there. We all deserve some time off. So I was just going to talk about I'm appointed to the Chamber Board, and like Jeff said earlier, that they are really trying to bridge that gap with the relationship with the shows that's been there for several years, and been to about 3 meetings in the last week over there. Had a great meeting with Marshall and Bob Nichols with BAM, and a few folks from the chamber staff and Mary Kellogg, and they've got some really cool ideas coming up with digital marketing and doing some co-op stuff, and it's very exciting. And again, I'm glad to be on that board and see the direction that they're going to really push all entities in Branson, but really putting a lot of focus on the theater district these days. So I'm proud to be a part of that and excited about it.
Thank you for that report. Alderman Fenton?
Well, I am happy to report that priority-based budgeting is complete.
Not complete yet.
Let's just say it's complete. I feel a lot better if we say that. No, we completed our second meeting on that recently, and it was really good. So I appreciate everybody in the finance department that helped us through that tedious process. Other than that, thank you all for being here to celebrate my birthday tonight.
Yeah.
That's why you were really here. So I appreciate that, and that's all I got. Thanks.
Jamie?
I'll try to keep it brief so Alderman Fenton can go celebrate his birthday. But I just want to say special thanks to Stacy McAllister. Thanks for stepping in tonight and filling in. And just Administrator Dobbins, you know, when our department heads can't be here, we've got people ready to fill in. And just thank you for what you did tonight in presenting.
Mm-hmm. This is what you get when you go last. Yeah, because I know Jamie's out there, so a big shout out to her. Hope she's feeling better. But yeah, Stacy and the whole gang up there bringing us an award-winning clean bill of health audit. So it's much appreciated. Thanks.
Alderman Dobbins. Administrator Dobbins, okay.
Since you can't get it right, I'm not going to say nothing.
All right. Last but not least, I think we're all concerned about the COVID situation in our area. We've all had discussions among ourselves and pretty much feel that it's not the board's responsibility to tell anybody how to do anything. That's a discussion between the doctor and the medical people and the patient. We are in a situation which is pretty rough for this community. that it's not seen since the Spanish flu pandemic, what, 1917, 18, 19, 20, somewhere like that. But I do suggest that you have discussion with your family members. What's the best way for you to make it through this? I've had it hit our family. I've had deaths in my family. I've had deaths in my friends, 2 of them, in the last couple of weeks. And it's a heavy weight, a heavy burden for us all to carry. I just ask you to keep your community at heart, and like Larry has said, be Branson, be above it. Don't get into these discussions of where they've been in Facebook, if you know what I mean. May I have a motion? Is that what I need to be doing now? Motion to adjourn. Somebody push the right buttons.
I'll take that, the verbal motion to adjourn.
Yeah, because it's waiting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Did it by 9 o'clock?
Yeah, baby, good job.
Rolling, rolling, rolling.
Rolling, rolling, rolling.